All right, are we all set?
Yes, sir, we are. I believe we're all set over here.
Grab your seat.
All right.
Listen. Okay, this inquiry will come to order. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Lucy. I've been appointed as a pretrial confinement review officer by order of Colonel Jeremy Bergen, 27 Sal, Commander, dated 25 January 2024. As a pretrial confinement review officer, it's my duty to review thoroughly and impartially all relevant matters to determine whether or not your pretrial confinement should continue. In doing so, I will consider and evaluate evidence to determine whether each of the following criteria is established by preponderance of the evidence. That an offense triable by court-martial has been committed, that you committed it, and that confinement is necessary because it is foreseeable that you will not appear at trial, pretrial hearing, or investigation, or that you will engage in serious criminal misconduct, and that less severe forms of restraint are inadequate. Accordingly, this review will include an examination of the facts surrounding offenses of which you have been charged. It is my duty to act as an impartial fact finder. You understand the purpose of this hearing and my role.
Yes, sir.
At this time, I'll advise you of your rights during this review. First, you have all those rights granted to you by Article 31 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Article 31 provides, alpha, no person subject to this chapter may compel any person to incriminate himself or herself or to answer any question, the answer to which may tend to incriminate him or her. Bravo, no person subject to this chapter may interrogate or question or request any statement from the accused or a person suspected of an offense without first informing him or her of the nature of the accusation, advising him or her that he or she does not have to make a statement regarding the offenses of which he or she has been accused or suspected, and that any statement made by him or her may be used as evidence against him or her in a trial by court-martial. C. No person subject to this chapter may compel any person to make a statement or produce evidence before any military tribunal if the statement or evidence is not material to the issue and may tend to delegate him or degrade him or her. And D. No statement obtained from any person in violation of this article or through use of coercion, unlawful influence, or unlawful inducement may be received in evidence against him or her in trial by court-martial. In other words, you have the right to remain silent if you wish to make a statement. However, anything you said can and will be used against you in this or in any other judicial or administrative proceeding. You can make a statement, either sworn or unsworn, orally or in writing, in defense, mitigation, or extenuation. Do you understand these rights?
I do, yes, sir.
You may call witnesses or present other evidence if you wish. I will examine the witnesses called by you or your counsel may examine them. You do not have the right to cross-examine witnesses unless I so direct. Do you understand these rights?
Yes, sir.
You are charged with the offenses of absence without leave in violation of Article 86 UCMJ, disrespect towards a superior commissioned officer in violation of Article 89 UCMJ, insubordinate conduct towards non-commissioned officer in violation of Article 91 UCMJ, and failure to obey an order in violation of Article 92 UCMJ. The name of the accuser is Colonel Stuart P. Churchill. With regard to counsel, you have the following rights. First, you have the right to be represented free of charge by military counsel. Is a military attorney qualified to represent you in this inquiry? Additionally, you have the right to a civilian attorney at no cost to the government. Do you understand these rights as counsel?
Yes, sir.
By whom do you wish to be represented?
Captain Lisa Charles, sir, and Mr. Dan Conway, sir.
All right. Okay, defense counsel, please introduce yourself and state your qualifications.
Good morning, sir. I am Captain Lisa Tirado. I am the Area Defense Counsel at Minot Air Force Base. I, along with Mr. Daniel Conway, who is present but telephonically, represent Senior Airman Lance Castle. I am a judge advocate, qualified and certified under Article 27 Bravo of the UCMJ and sworn under Article 42 Alpha. Neither myself or Mr. Conway have acted in any manner that might disqualify us.
Okay, thank you. Also present for this inquiry is Captain Caitlin Blackburn, government representative, who may also present evidence and question the government, or defense counsel may also present evidence and question the government witnesses. The victims may also be present by video conference and may choose to make a statement. I intend to consider the following documentary evidence and attach it to my report. The exhibits to be considered are the 72-hour memo with attachments, and then the CD with all the defense attachments that he's got. I also intend to receive testimony from the following witnesses: Master Sergeant Matthew Calhoun, Senior Master Sergeant Marcus Hunt, Senior Master Sergeant Tanner Ike. Are there any other witnesses that you wish me to call on your behalf?
No, sir. Oh, Captain, we need to leave this, Robin.
Sir, if I may, I'm not sure where this is appropriate in the procedural guide, but I do have, the defense does have an objection to one of the government's exhibits that's before you. It is Airman Castle's entire personal information file. It's roughly about 300 pages. It's one of the discs that you have before you. The defense would object to anything that is in his PIF from prior to October of 2023. The reason for this objection is that all of those matters prior to October of 2023 were previously litigated. It was part of Airman Castle's court-martial last year in September, for which he was actually acquitted of. And so any consideration related to paperwork that he has as far back as 2019, the defense would argue that that is not relevant for your consideration. It should just be from when his court-martial terminated, roughly around September 2023 and onward to present day. And so after any questions that you may have, I just wanted to note that objection for the record for your consideration.
Okay, noted. You said October 2023?
Yes.
Brian, sir. This is Mr. Conway. Simply stated what Captain Toronto was saying is that in the 48-hour memorandum, the government is asking you to consider conduct for which he was fully acquitted at court-martial. So there's something offensive about asking you to consider matters for which he was acquitted. That's fundamentally what she's saying, and that's why we're objecting to it.
Okay, copy. Captain Blackburn.
Yes, sir. So to respond, we would say that it actually is relevant. They are items that are contained in his PIF. Items in the PIF are held to a different standard than that is at a court-martial. Items for LOCARs, LOCs, LOAs, LORs are preponderance of the evidence, not beyond a reasonable doubt. They are still contained in his PIF, and the PIF is something that you can consider in terms of whether or not he should continue to remain in confinement. I know your legal counsel is not here, but if you would like to take a break for your legal advisor, we can do that now, or you can consult with him later.
Okay. I think we need to get some of the witnesses in here pretty quick, so I will consult with counsel after we talk to the witnesses on that evidence, and then we'll get back with the rest of the group on that.
And then one more thing to add, sir, if I may. I know Captain Tirado did notice to us yesterday that there was an intention to call Master Sergeant Yarman. That was not included in the guide. And I just wanted to make sure that she had the opportunity to address if they would like her to be a witness still.
Sir, at this point, the intent is to call Master Sergeant Yarman. I understand that she's physically present, so we can leave her as the fourth witness if you prefer that order.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. Okay, any other objections at this point or anything?
Not from government, sir.
Okay.
Nothing from defense, sir.
All right, at this time, I'm ready for the first witness. Will the government representative ask the first witness to join us?
Yes, sir. So our first witness is Master Sergeant Matthew Calhoun. He is actually on leave right now, so he will be joining us via telephone. So I'm going to give him a call, and then we'll do a quick comms check to make sure everybody can hear him.
Okay.
Hi, is this Master Sergeant Calhoun? Okay, Master Sergeant Calhoun, this is Captain Blackburn. I'm here in the courtroom with the PCRO officer. I have Captain Serrato and Mr. Conway, Defense Counsel for Senior Airman Castle, appearing via team. Senior Airman Castle is physically present, but because we have different communication systems going now, I would just ask that you speak up as much as you can. I have volume maxed out here, but just be cognizant of what we're saying to you. If you have any problems hearing us, please let us know, and we'll take breaks as necessary to make sure comms are good. Okay?
Understood.
Can you hear him from there, sir?
Yeah.
Can y'all hear him, Captain Serrato? I can't hear you.
Conference room.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can hear him.
And Sergeant Calhoun, likewise on your end, if you can't hear us, let us know and we'll move the phone around the room.
Copy that, appreciate it.
Okay, this review is to determine whether the accused should continue to be held in pretrial confinement. I'll take your testimony for this purpose. However, before testifying, you must be sworn in. Please stand and raise your right hand. Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter now, in this hearing, shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Please state your complete name, rank, duty, organization, and station.
Complete name is Matthew Van Calhoun. I am a Master Sergeant, First Sergeant for the 27th Special Operations Force Support Squad. Yeah.
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit. So I got that you're the First Sergeant for the 27th FSS.
You're coming in broken, unreadable.
Sorry, I apologize. I am not able to hear him.
Yeah.
We have to run.
Is there any way that
This is comment as well. We can't.
is there any way you can call in?
Yeah, Master Sergeant Calhoun, can you try calling into the team's number if I give it to you?
Yeah, can I just make a telephone call that way?
Yes, you can. So I'm going to text you the phone number to call, and then there will be a PIN associated with it that you'll type into, and it'll just show your phone number on the screen for us. But you should be able to hear everything. Okay, I'm going to hang up.
Okay, bye.
Can you pull up the meeting information?
Go back to me.
All right, Master Sergeant Calhoun, can you identify yourself?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, perfect.
Matt Sergeant Calhoun. Come on.
Okay. We have 2 phone numbers. That's why I just asked, so it'd glow when you're talking. I know which person it is.
Okay, so we got your complete name, rank, duty station, organization. At this point, please provide your statement.
Sir, with your permission,
Provide my statement.
if I could,
Or are you going to just question it?
could I question him, and then
Yes.
if you have questions, follow up with that?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. So, Master Sergeant Calhoun, this is Captain Blackburn speaking. You stated your name, rank, duty station. What is your role here at Cannon Air Force Base?
I am the first sergeant for the 27th Special Operations Force Squadron.
And what does that job entail?
What does it entail? It's mainly ensuring the force is ready for whatever mission is in front of it. But it's more of soft skills, people type things than the mission itself.
How long have you been in that role?
About 3.5 years.
And has that always been as the FSS First Sergeant?
No, I've been a first sergeant for about 3.5 years. I've been at FSS since October of this last year, of 23. Before that, I was at the 16th AMU, the 27th MXS, and I was deployed as a first sergeant as well.
When was the first time that you came to know Senior Airman Castle?
The first time I ever met him was the 28th of May.
And what were the circumstances of that meeting?
It was more of a meeting just to welcome him to the unit, with myself, Senior Master Sergeant Hunt, Major Boyd, and Master Sergeant Noel, because he had happened to be holding my phone the week prior.
And why were those individuals involved in the meeting?
It's a pretty standard triad meeting, just to get to know, especially in situations that are a little bit different. But just to get to know the airmen involved and talk about expectations, and kind of where we're going from, have the airmen meet us all, and so we can all be on the same page.
Okay, so what happened in that meeting?
The meeting was mainly it was Airman Castle telling his story. He wanted to share where he was coming from and his history, and then to share that there were quite a few triggers for him, and it was us listening, giving some baseline expectations, and just welcoming him into the unit. I remember I gave him a patch that day.
You said he was telling his story and shared some of his triggers. What were the triggers that he shared with y'all?
I'm not gonna be able to remember all of them. I do remember one was going in and out of the gate due to security forces. One was seeing certain people, even the pictures on the walls in the buildings. And then one that really stood out to me was that I'm like, hey man, I just want to let you know you got a clean slate here. And he's like, I know you don't know this, but that's also a trigger for me. People saying that I have a clean slate. So those were a few of them.
What was your reaction when you heard that these were triggers for him?
I was surprised because I wasn't fully read in on Airman Castle, so I did not realize that this was what was going on with him.
Did you get a sense of the others who were in that meeting, their reactions at that time?
I imagine they were surprised, but I can't speak for them.
Okay. When he shared his story and shared these triggers with you and what would be kind of his command team meet and greet, if you will, what was that conversation like as to how those triggers and how his story was going to be addressed?
Senior Hunt and I, it was more of an offline type conversation.
that I don't believe took place in front of Airman Castle to begin with, just so that we could all be on the same page. But the main thing was at the time we agreed that he would work from 9 to 3 to ensure that he was not hitting a lot of gate traffic to help alleviate his anxiety with that. And the office that we put him in was away from most people. So we were trying very hard to help him out when he first came out at that. Well, the whole time honestly. You
said that conversation happened outside of his presence. After those decisions were made, did you share that with him?
Yes, absolutely. Senior Hunt and I both met with Lance to talk about it.
And what was his reaction to those accommodations?
At first, I thought it was a good reaction. The 9 to 3 especially, I remember specifically him saying thank you. And then at the first day or two, I didn't realize that the work conditions in that office were a problem at all. I thought that he was happy about that too.
What do you mean they were a problem?
They were not a problem. No, I walking away from that conversation, I fully expected Lance to work in that office that we had picked out for him.
Did they become a problem?
Yes, I think. After a couple of days, he stated that he couldn't work with the civilian that was back there. And I don't know that he did any actually work back there at all. Yeah.
So when he told you that he couldn't work with a civilian, did he say why?
I'm absolutely sure he did. However, I couldn't tell you why. I think because he asked a lot of questions and talked a lot.
Sure. So when he told you that, were other accommodations made?
At that time, we tried our best to be like, here, this is the office. We moved everybody out of it. We talked to the civilian and said, hey, keep conversations with him to a minimum, to try to alleviate all of that stress there.
So you said this initial meeting where you talked to him and then had a conversation and brought those accommodations back to him happened in late May. His hours were set from 9 to 3. Was he in that office from 9 to 3 every day?
I cannot think of a time that he was, no. But he said that he had appointments and things of that nature.
So when he relayed he was not in the office, he was at appointments, did he tell you where he was going?
He did, yes.
Where did he say he was going?
I don't remember off the top of my head. They were, legitimate appointments from what it sounded like to me. And the only time I ever actually followed through on checking up that he was there because, well, I trusted him. He was where he said he was going to be.
Were they meetings of a personal nature, or was he handling medical concerns or other support services?
Most of them were medical concerns. I think one of them may have been an HVAC appointment at his house, which was like, whatever, go do it.
Okay. So he was working from 9 to 3 in this somewhat isolated office with the civilian. How long did that accommodation last, or did it ever change?
It did change. It may have been a work week, was what we had originally had 9 to 3, and then we moved it from 9 to 1300 because there was a pending. He had just done the CDE, Commander Director Evaluation, and we were waiting a TTM, treatment team meeting, to see if they would allow telework or if there was another option, because we didn't have any information about. We were kind of just. We came into it pretty cold. We didn't really know what was going on. So we were trying to accommodate him as much as we could until we understood medical diagnoses and things of that nature, what that recommendation was.
Okay, so you said for about a week he was working this 9 to 3 and then shifted from 9 to 1500. You were waiting for these accommodations to come back. from medical professionals saying this is how he should be accommodated. Did they get back to you?
Mm-hmm. Did they? Yes, they did.
What did they say?
And that was in the TTM with the CDE results. They said that there's no medical reason for telework. And at this whole time, even Airman Castle had fallen under LRS for his command team. We were just kind of there to care and feed for him, make sure he was safe. So our hands were tied. We were going off of what other people were telling us we should be doing.
So just to make sure that we're all understanding correctly, he was under G series with LRS, but y'all were the ones providing him the workspace, providing him the work, and providing him care and feeding, correct?
Correct.
So when the accommodations came back, or lack thereof accommodations, this teleworking not being approved, did that go directly to LRS and then be fed to y'all as FSS, or did it go to both at the same time?
It went to, I was in the room with LRS in the TTM, so I was present for it. And so then I let Senior Hunt know that there were no recommendations to telework, and he's like, okay, I guess we'll move it back to 9 to 3.
So when you said that it was outside of your hands to make that telework accommodation, that was because you were serving in the role of FSS, not being in G-Series command of him, correct?
That is correct.
Did you have any conversations with LRS about allowing telework?
I was in rooms while conversations were had. I did not have any direct conversations with them.
So did they make decisions as to whether or not telework would be granted?
They did make those decisions, yes.
And what did they tell you those decisions were?
They said that telework would not be necessary this time.
When did you tell Senior Airman Castle that those accommodations of telework were not going to be granted as a result of the TTM?
I don't know if I actually told him or if it was part of the TTM itself. But it was, we were very transparent about it. I honestly think that, during the TTM, when Lance was there talking, he called in, proposed the CDE results, that it was told to him that, I'm pretty sure.
Do you know the approximate date of that TTM?
I think it was June 3rd. I know Lance knows.
Okay, so following that denial of telework, what, if any, accommodations did you make for Senior Airman Castle to continue working with FSS?
We still kept him at the 9 to 3 hours, so that was an accommodation as opposed to, a full duty day at 7:30 to 4:30. We were still trying to definitely work with him, so we moved it back to 9 to 3, which he wasn't too thrilled about, but that's what we did.
What do you mean he wasn't too thrilled about it?
He was pretty upset with Senior Hunt for going from 9 to 1 to 9 to 3.
Were you part of any of those conversations with Senior Hunt about switching back to 9 to 3?
Yeah, we talked about it, and it was still, we were still feeling like we were trying to accommodate him as much as we could and uphold what LRS wanted to do.
So what was Senior Airman Castle's physical and verbal reaction when you told him teleworking would not be allowed and he would be switching back from 9 to 3?
He was frustrated. I don't know. It's hard. I'm not sure, honestly. I know that he was not happy with that. It was very apparent. And he was frustrated. He didn't have any no physical reactions that I remember.
Sorry, say that last part again.
There were no physical reactions that I remember. He was just upset.
Did you have this conversation in person, or was it over text message, or both?
It was the original conversation was during the TTM with Dr. Marchek, I believe. So he was on the phone.
Follow-on conversations that you had with him about the accommodations of switching back to 9 to 3, were those in person or over text message?
I believe those were in person. They were with myself, Senior Hunt, and Airman Castle in my office. And no, there were no nothing physically jumped out at me, as far as his reaction. But he definitely was upset. He was frustrated.
What language was he using when he was voicing his frustration?
Can you be more specific in that question?
What language was he using when he was voicing his frustration? What did he say?
That he didn't understand because of his diagnoses, that he was going through an MEP, so that says he's not suitable to be in the military. So why does he have to come into work? Just a lot of not understanding where we were coming from, and not understanding why it had to be done this way. A lot of it was I don't know if confrontational is the right word, but he didn't. He was not accepting of it by any means. But it wasn't. Nothing jumped out to me like disrespectful or anything like that when we were having this conversation.
Okay, so when did you start this switch back to 9 to 3? Do you remember the approximate date?
It was very shortly after June 3rd.
Okay, so what did that first work day that he was supposed to be back to 9 to 3 look like?
I don't think he came into the building. I think he was in his car. And I went out to the parking lot to check on him. He said he didn't feel comfortable coming in the building. I said, take your time, get to a place where you do feel comfortable to come in. And then, an hour or so later, I think he had an appointment.
So 9 o'clock, he's supposed to be at work. Does he text you to say he's outside in his car?
Yeah, he was outside at 9.
Okay, so text you at 9 o'clock saying he's in his car. You go downstairs, talk to him, say, take your time. When you're ready, come inside. He did not come inside. He then left for an appointment at some point?
Yeah, I believe so.
So did he ever come to work that day? Into the building?
I don't think he did that first day.
Okay, what about the next day?
I'm sorry, say that again? He
He did not.
did not.
Can you say that last part again? Did he come into work that day, first day? The physical building?
I don't think he came into the building that first day.
And what about the next day?
Again, I'm not sure. I remember at least one day he did come up to my office, so we could have a conversation. I don't even remember what that conversation was about, but no, he did not come into the building and was asking for work to be done from his vehicle after a couple of days. So,
What was his job at this time?
and we hadn't ever really had a chance to establish it. We did have duties for him, which I emailed him actually just maybe a week or two ago. Finally, but we never actually got to the point where he came in to do any of those. I don't even know if he was aware.
So did you have any conversations with him about what some of his responsibilities would be in the workplace?
I did not know.
Did you know if anybody else had conversations with him about that?
I don't know.
So when he asked for work to do in the car, how did you respond to that then?
I said I will see if there's anything to do.
Did you?
Did I? Yeah, I reached out to the civilian to get a breakdown of duties that he would receive.
What
but
were those?
I don't remember. It's in an email. I have to send it.
Was it something he could do from his car?
I don't think so. I think it has to do. He has to be on the work laptop for most of it.
So you said that the second day you can't quite remember. Was there a time that you do remember him coming into the office to work, not just to your office to talk to you, but actually going to what was supposed to be his duty location at that time to do work that was assigned to him?
No, I'm not aware of any days where he did that.
Was there ever a time that he stopped showing up to the parking lot?
Yes.
When was that?
That was, again, I don't have the date on me, but it was after Colonel Churchill issued him an LOR, and it was after he had issued him the expectations memorandum, which stated that he would report to me at 7:30 every morning. He called me at 7:15 that day. It was the day after, 7:15-ish that day, and said he was never coming back to Camden.
So the day after he was given an expectation of appearing at work at 7:30 to your office where he had been before, he said he was never coming back to Camden Air Force Base.
That is correct. He had no intention of ever coming back to Camden Air Force Base.
Did you talk to him about that?
I did. I advised him that that probably wasn't the best course of action.
What was his response?
He seemed nonplussed by it.
Did you have any conversations about what next steps would be or any other accommodations that could be made?
At that time, no. I was more in the, I was more trying to push that information to the stakeholders involved. But no, from the expectations memo, it was pretty cut and dry, from everybody who was there that he was supposed to be at work at 7:30. So I didn't know, I didn't think any more accommodations would be made, honestly.
Okay, I want to break just a little bit from talking about his requirements to be in a place and fulfill duties and turn to this expectation memo that you're speaking of. Were you present when that expectation memo was given to Senior Airman Castle?
I was.
What was his reaction upon receiving it?
He said that he couldn't do it. And it was the specific things I believe were posting on social media and recording. Were things he's like, I cannot do these things.
Did he sign acknowledging that he received the memo?
I don't think so. I don't know if he's signed much since I've known him. I think I signed the member refused to sign, or something of that nature.
You mentioned not posting during social media or not posting on social media. Was there other expectations in that memo that you can recall besides to report to you at 7:30?
Yeah, it was 7:30 to 4:30, 16:30, with an hour lunch. Yeah, no being on social media during the duty day because of lunch. No recording. I think there was a blurb about PT in there as well. And I think there were a couple of other links that I can't remember off the top of my head.
You said no recording. Do you remember the details of that expectation?
That it was without consent from the party that he was recording.
Did he have a response to that expectation that you remember?
No, not really that I remember. He would continue to record. He did ask me most times if he had permission to record me, but I don't know about or have other people.
Around the same time, was he ever issued any other written orders that you're aware of?
There was a no contact order, yes.
Do you remember the contents of that order?
I mean, it was a general no contact order, which means he's not allowed to contact the people listed in any form or fashion, email, phone, text, SMS.
Were you?
I don't know, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Were you physically present when he received that order?
I was.
What was his reaction to that order?
I don't recall it being anything other than just standing there.
Do you recall if he signed acknowledgement of receipt of that order?
I don't recall.
Thank you. So switching back to duty location, duty responsibilities. You said the next day after he received his expectation memo to be reporting into you at 7:30, he said he was never coming back to Camden Air Force Base. You said it was not the wisest idea. How did that conversation take place? Was that in person or over text message?
Yeah, it was over telephone.
Telephone. What was his tone like on that call?
What is it? Man, what is Lance's tone? Lance is a very intense individual. It was intense. It was very much, this is what's going to happen. I'm not coming back to base. And when like that, it's very difficult to talk to him, right? It's more of I am listening to what he is saying. Which is okay. But it was just, he wasn't going to do it. I don't know if it was defiant or defensive, or fearful. I'm not really sure. But he was very, very headstrong in the fact that it wasn't going to happen.
Did he raise his voice on that call?
I don't know.
Did he use any language that you would consider to be disrespectful?
Not that I remember, no.
So the next day, following this, I am not returning to Cannon Air Force Base, did he show up for work at 7:30?
No.
Do you know if he came to Cannon Air Force Base?
He did not. He texted me the next day at 7:30 with a picture of himself and his phone, and a picture of his phone saying it was 7:30.
How many days did this continue for?
It continued until the NJP offer.
When was that?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Do you remember what month it was in?
Yeah, I do. It was mid-July. Maybe July 11th, somewhere around there.
So you said this was approximately mid-June that he had this expectation memo to now we're talking mid-July. During that entire time, did he ever come to Cannon Air Force Base to report into work?
No, he did not. And it was late June, like June 26th time frame, somewhere around there.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So switching to this NJP, were you the one that communicated he needed to be there for service of the NJP?
I think it was mainly Master Sergeant Yarman who was holding my phone. They communicated to him. I remember a text message with a birth citizenship, so that she was involved in. So no, I showed up, I believe, the day of the NJP is when I got back.
The day of the NJP, was he given an order for reporting time?
He was.
What was it?
I don't know what time it was.
Do you remember if he... Sorry, go ahead.
He showed up on time. I think he was maybe 10 minutes late to the front gate for some reason, but nothing that concerned anybody.
Was he given an order to appear in a certain uniform?
Yes, he was told to appear in service dress.
Did he appear in service dress?
He did not.
What was he wearing?
He was wearing the CP.
You mentioned in that expectation memo before that he was ordered not to record without the consent of others. When he showed up, did he record that NJP service?
He did.
Was he told to stop recording?
He was told that he could have audio recording only. And he was told that by Sergeant Garman, by myself. And he went in and had his video on. So then he was told he could not video record again.
So you said he was told by you and Master Sergeant Yarman that he could audio record. Who gave him that permission?
Colonel Churchill.
So Colonel Churchill granted him permission to audio record, and he walked into the room of the service of the NJP in OCP's video recording. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Was he told by anyone in that room to stop video recording?
Yes, he was by Colonel Churchill.
What was his reaction?
Aaron Cappell's reaction?
Yes.
It was kind of a reluctant reaction. And then again, it's all in recording, but it was more or less, if I don't record, or if I continue to record, are you going to serve the NJP? Was his question. It wasn't an immediate, okay, yes, sir. following orders or anything like that.
Did Colonel Churchill order him again to stop video recording?
I believe so.
Did he comply the second time?
I don't know what time it was. He did end up complying.
So it took multiple orders from Colonel Churchill for him to stop video recording and only audio record. Is that correct?
Correct.
Upon service of the NJP, what happened next?
Okay, if he was offered, we went up to my office to discuss it. And yeah, that's what we did. Made copies, things of that nature, normal post NJP offering discussion.
What were those conversations about?
It was, okay, appointment with ADC, you got to respond to back in 3 duty days. This is the day that it's due back. And then this block is whether you accept NJP or request or demand court martial, excuse me, and then whether or not you want a personal appearance. I mean, it was standard Article 15 type thing.
Did he say anything to you about the contents of the Article 15 at that point?
Not that I recall, no.
After you guys went through the administrative piece, if you will, of making sure he had copies and knew where to sign and so forth, did he leave base?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, he did. Yes, he left base.
Did he make any efforts to return to work later that day?
No, he actually had an appointment later that day with his ADC, which he did not. I think rescheduled it. I'm pretty sure he rescheduled it or canceled it. I remember the conversation. He was like, "Well, will I get in trouble for a missed appointment?" I'm like, "No, man, just call and cancel the appointment because it's the right thing to do." So yeah, he did not come back to base that day.
So as far as you're aware, he did not have any other appointments or obligations that would preclude him from being at work that day.
No, not that I'm aware of.
All right, moving forward, when was the next time that you physically saw Senior Airman Castle in person?
It was when I went to his house for him to initial off on his portion of the NJP assignment.
Okay, what was that conversation like?
It was fine. I drove to top of know I was coming. He met me outside. I walked up. I waved to the camera. I showed him the NJP and where he needed to sign. I think he asked me a couple of questions, not necessarily about the NJP itself. I don't remember what they were, but then I left and went back to work.
Did he make any comments or ask you any questions about the consequences of his election on that NJP?
No, he fully understood that he was demanding court martial.
So following the elections on that NJP for demanding court martial, did you have any other text message communications with Senior Airman Castle?
Yes.
What were those about?
I have no idea.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you text him each morning asking if he was going to show up for work?
He texted me each morning with a picture of himself at his house.
Did you ask him if he was going to show up for work?
I don't think I did. I think it was understood that he wasn't going to show up for work.
So every morning he's texting you. It sounds like you said in uniform. Was that every text message he was in uniform?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. I can't think of anything where he was in the city.
Okay. At what point did you have to interact with him in person again?
That was after referral of charges. There was an appointment for referral of charges, which he didn't show up to in time.
So let's talk about that. Did you text him about the time and location that he needed to be at for the referral?
I did.
And what was that conversation like?
That conversation was not, didn't seem like an issue to me. The phone conversation was where things went a little haywire.
In your conversations about this referral, did he seem accepting, exciting? What were his emotions regarding going to a court martial?
Trying to think of the right words. Yeah, definitely accepting. I don't know if excited is the right word. Or maybe relieved that we were finally to this point.
Was he willing to take all the steps necessary from your communications to get to a court martial?
Yes. I fully expected that to happen, yes.
So you set a date, or excuse me, who set the date and time for the referral?
I got it from Colonel Churchill.
So you communicated from Colonel Churchill that this was the time and the location that Senior Airman Castle needed to be at for referral. What was that location?
That location was, we were going to meet at the Visitors Control Center, and then we would go to Building 600 to conference room.
What time was he supposed to be at the Visitor Control Center?
Noon.
Was he told a uniform he was supposed to show up in?
Yes, service check.
Was he given any other expectations for that service of referral?
No recording whatsoever would be allowed.
So when did he show up to the VCC?
He did not.
Did you have a conversation with him about showing up to the VCC?
Yes, I did, and multiple.
What was going on in those moments when he was supposed to be at the VCC and you were having those calls with him?
The first part of the conversation was regarding the recording of the referral charges that he wasn't allowed to. He was very hesitant to come in if he couldn't record, which we had worked a workaround out with him. But then it was, what if I don't show up in service? It was very fearful of, I don't even know if fearful is the right emotion, but he was very apprehensive of getting arrested when he was there.
Did he say he was going to show up in service dress?
He had his service dress with him. He was in cities. But yes, I believe he had every intention of putting on his service dress and doing what he was supposed to do. I let him know, man, if you don't record and you're doing what you're supposed to do, there's nothing to arrest you for.
Have you ever had any conversations with Senior Airman Castle about where his service dress is stored?
Yeah, he said it was stored in Lubbock. That first time when Colonel Churchill was going to issue an LMR, he said he wasn't going to be able to get it because it was stored in Lubbock. But since then, I know that he had it because he sent a picture of it to myself and Colonel Burke.
So the day of referral, he told you he had his service dress with him. How long did you wait at the VCC for him to show up?
I was there from noon to 12:45.
So he was already late for his appointment, not in his service dress, asking for accommodations for recording, and otherwise not complying with an order to be at the VCC by noon. Did you convey to him that he was in violation of these orders?
I don't know. I mean, we were all very aware that he was late and not in the correct uniform.
Why did you leave the VCC at 12? Why did you leave the VCC at 12:45?
Because Colonel Churchill reached out and said that he was done waiting. He was already 45 minutes later than where he was supposed to be, and he was canceling the meeting.
Following this missed appointment for referral of charges for a court martial that he said he wanted, what was the next conversation you had with Senior Airman Castle about showing up for base, or showing up to base, excuse me?
I don't recall having another conversation with him about that.
Did you have a conversation with him about his duty status?
I did. I'm pretty sure at least about him being, going from AWOL to deserter, and that he needs to show up to work the next day.
Did you talk to him in any detail about like what that meant, going from AWOL to deserter?
I don't think so. I think I may have mentioned something about TRICARE benefits for his son. But no, I didn't. I don't think I went into any detail about deserter status.
When were you
But
notified?
I know that I did give him the AFI, so he was well aware.
Okay. Were you notified at some point that he was put into deserter status?
I don't know that I was, no.
Did you become aware of it at some point?
Yes, actually, I was. I did become aware of it, when, OSI let me know that they were going to his house and I needed to start driving out there because I wanted to be near. So, in case Mackenzie wasn't there and Asher was, I was going to stay with Asher, with Francis' permission so that, he didn't have to go to CPS.
So when you said OSI was heading to his house, what do you mean by that?
They were working with local PD to apprehend him, because he was in deserter status.
Did you ever have any conversations with him, either before he was put into deserter status or after he was put into deserter status, about other ways that you, as the person responsible for his care and feeding, could support him?
I don't know. I can't think of anything specific, but I know I had multiple conversations with him, as to, his mental health, his well-being, his family's well-being. But yeah, I feel like I went. I did all I could to support him, to help him out.
Thank you. All right. I swear I don't have very many questions left. I know we've been going for a long time. I want to rewind all the way back to the beginning, your first interaction with Senior Airman Castle. During this entire time, it sounds like you have been doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the care and feeding of Senior Airman Castle. Does that sound like a fair qualification?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care anything. I've probably been the person that has communicated with Lance the most, from the Air Force.
Is there ever a time during this entire time that you've been helping care and feed for him, that you felt he was not being provided enough accommodations to meet his needs?
I don't know. I feel like according to medical, that we were doing everything that we needed to do to accommodate him. There was one point in time where we tried to move him over to the chapel, to try to get him back on the base and working, but certain entities wouldn't allow that to happen. I think that medically he was having his needs met, by us. However, I was always trying to figure out new and different ways to get him to come into work.
It sounds like, I mean, you said first sergeant for about 3.5 years. How long have you been in the Air Force?
22 years.
During that time, about how many airmen have you either supervised directly or indirectly or mentored?
Hundreds. But to talk like direct mentorship, and like a lot of my time, I'd say probably 20.
If one of those airmen that you were supervising or mentoring exhibited behavior that Senior Airman Castle was exhibiting, what would you tell him?
I would tell him, more or less what I told him, which was to keep your head down, come to work, let's get through this, let's figure this out. There was one point in time where I would tell them that, I would advise them to go to inpatient, based on their diagnoses. Sorry, I'm emotional about this, because I really want landscape that will be me.
Take the time you need.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. You've gotten to know Senior Airman Castle pretty well, it sounds like. You've had these conversations with him both in person, over text message. You're familiar with his family.
Yes.
Are you confident or unconfident that if Senior Airman Castle was given an order by a superior going forward, that he would follow that order regardless of whether or not he believed it was justified or lawful?
So is the question, do I believe I have to follow an order? Just like period. The answer is no, I don't think that you would follow an order based on the history that we've had.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have for you. The PCRO our hearing officer here, may have some additional questions. Additionally, defense may have some additional questions, so just stay on the line until you're excused. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay, I'll turn it over to the defense now. If you guys have any questions?
Okay, sir. Sergeant Calvin, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you, man.
Great. This is Captain Toronto. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. Okay. So it sounds like, based off of what you just talked about with Captain Blackburn, that you were probably the person that had the most interaction with Senior Airman Castle for the past, I would say, few months. Is that correct?
Yeah, probably since May 28th, yeah.
Okay. And in that time, since, let's say, the first time you met him up until now, Airman Castle has communicated with you his concerns about leadership. Is that right?
Yes, he has.
Okay. And he's been pretty consistent about those concerns, right?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that's changed is that there was more people have been added.
Okay. And so in those concerns that he has described to you over time, some of it has to do with his mental health, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he's actually expressed to you that he didn't feel like he was getting the adequate treatment that he needed.
Yes.
Okay. And then also part of his concern was not necessarily having a clean slate as he described was like a trigger word for him, right?
Mm-hmm. But
Okay.
he felt that because a lot of people have said that to him in the past, and he felt that was disingenuous, I believe.
Yeah, because it's frustrating, right, that his PIN contained documents in there that are from a long time ago and they still keep coming up. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I want to go back a little bit to some of the appointments that Airman Castle that you talked about that he's missed. One of those being referral of charges. On that day, tell me about that day. Well, the expectation was that he was supposed to meet you at the visitor center. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And prior to meeting at the visitor center, he had actually called you expressing some concerns they had had about the meeting coming up.
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, one of his biggest concerns was that he was going to be arrested that day.
Yes.
Okay. In fact, he kept asking you, am I going to be arrested? Right?
Right.
I think he asked you that probably about, maybe like a handful of times.
Yeah, yes, a handful of times seems accurate.
Okay. Sergeant Calhoun, was there any interest by leadership at that point to actually arrest him that day?
No, not if he was following the orders that he was supposed to follow. No, there was no interest in arresting him.
Okay. And were you familiar up until this point with the pretrial confinement that had occurred last year in 2023?
I mean, somewhat. I was familiar with it from what Lance had told me.
Okay. Were you familiar with like the lead up to that pretrial confinement, the fact that he was actually misled on a false TPM that was scheduled?
Yes, I am very aware of that.
Okay. And so obviously having been misled on a false TTM and then being thrown into pretrial confinement shortly thereafter, were you also aware that Airman Castle had to be restrained on a chair and had his clothes ripped off during that part of the confinement?
I was not aware of all the details, but yes, I was aware that something of that nature happened there.
Okay. And then were you also aware that during that time, that first 24 hours of confinement, there was actually a physical cell extraction of Airman Castle by 6 security forces members?
I didn't realize it was in that timeline, but yes, I was aware of some extraction.
Okay. And that fear that he kept communicating to you about potentially getting arrested, you can agree that that fear is pretty legitimate considering what he had previously gone through with pretrial confinement and that arrest.
I don't know if it was fear or what it was, but yes, I can understand the concern.
Okay. So, when he is supposed to show up for his referral of charges, I think you had described, like, you believe that he actually had the intent to go to referral charges. Is that right?
I thought he did, yes.
Okay. You think he actually had his uniform even with him in his car?
I believe so. He told me he did, so I have no reason to.
Okay. And again, just so we are all clear, the only reason that he did not show up to referral of charges was because he had a legitimate fear that he was actually going to get arrested that day.
I believe so.
Okay. And afterwards, after referral of charges, you actually go to his house and serve the paperwork on him. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And at that point, Airman Castle opened the door, he greeted you with respect and received the paperwork?
Absolutely. Airman Castle has always treated me with respect.
Okay. So then, prior to that, I think you were describing the time that you had seen him right before referral of charges was around the Article 15 offer. Is that right?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Up until this point, up until the Article 15, had Airman Castle described to you like what he wanted for his future?
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with him. I'm like, dude, what are your goals? His primary goal was to ensure all of those that were complicit in the last UCMJ violations that he went through. All those people were held accountable. That was his future as far as he could see. And after that, he's like, okay, after that's all done, then maybe I can think about other things.
Yeah, so it seemed like, correct me if I'm wrong, but from your impression, Airman Castle's primary focus was vindication or almost holding those accountable who he had felt wronged him. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And he wanted to do that in a legal setting, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And in fact, every time that he would, request meetings, for example, with the wing or with the medical personnel, like at mental health, those meetings were not actually scheduled. Is that right?
I don't know. I know that there was, when we first started this, there was a TTM that he had
requested, which I ended up ensuring got scheduled. But the other ones, I don't know if they were ever scheduled now.
Okay, so the only recourse that he has is really a legal setting, right? Perhaps like a court-martial.
I don't know. It's
Okay.
the only recourse that we're going down.
Yeah, and in fact, so the Article 15, just so to help the hearing officer understand, the Article 15, Airman Castle has a right to either accept Article 15 and keep it at the Article 15 level, or demand trial by court-martial, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and Airman Castle, pretty quickly accepted and demanded trial by court-martial.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually did, I believe that. Has been involved for a while.
Okay, and you described, that instance surrounding, I think the Article 15 and maybe referral of charges once that appointment was made, but Airman Castle seemed, relieved almost, maybe a little bit satisfied that he was finally going to get his day in court.
Yes.
Okay. Sergeant Calhoun, are you familiar with, and it's fine if you're not, are you familiar with the criteria for pretrial confinement?
I am not, no.
Okay. Prior to pretrial confinement last Friday, what were the discussions that you had had with command about pretrial confinement and why it was being ordered?
I don't recall having any discussions as to why he was going to be placed in pretrial confinement.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to look at either the 48-hour memo or the 72-hour memo?
No, I'm not.
Okay. One of the things that's described in both of those documents is a concern that Airman Castle would not show up for any future either pretrial or trial hearings. As you've experienced time and time again with Airman Castle and the conversations that you have had about his desire to have a court-martial, to hold those accountable that he felt had wronged him, do you honestly believe that Airman Castle would not show up for his future trial?
For the trial itself?
Correct.
I have no reason to believe he wouldn't show up.
Okay, in fact, and put another way, you believe he would show up to his future trial and any proceedings related to the trial?
I don't know about proceedings. Obviously the pre-trial or the referral of charges meeting he wasn't able to show up to. But no, I think that he would. If I were betting on it, I would bet that he would show up.
Okay, and just to be clear about referral of charges, he didn't show up. He was on his way to referral charges, correct?
Yeah, from my understanding, I believe he was. I never saw him.
And the number one concern that he was echoing to you was his fear of being arrested, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, at no point in that conversation when he's about to get to the visitor center did he say, I'm not going to referral of charges, I don't want to go to referral of charges because I just don't want to have charges preferred against me.
No, it wasn't about the charges being preferred, no. It was about, he can't report in to lose, what he doesn't want to lose, things of that nature.
Okay. And that would have inevitably led to him being arrested, correct?
I don't know. I am pretty positive that if he was recording, it would have been. The other things, I don't think he would have been arrested for at all.
Okay, understood. The prosecution had talked a little bit about Airman Castle's lack of appearing for work and to his appointed place of duty overtime. Do you recall a conversation where I believe Master Sergeant Norman was present as well between you and Airman Castle, where Airman Castle says he would show up to work, just not that particular location?
I don't recall having that conversation, no. However, there were conversations had between myself and Lance about different duty locations. If he was open to going to other places, and he said he was.
Okay, and one of those places being the chapel, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I think earlier you had said it was denied. I don't remember, or maybe I missed it. Who actually denied it?
I don't know who denied it, but it was from the chapel end.
Any idea why it was denied?
I can make guesses, but I never got a definitive answer as to why.
Okay, and I think another alternative duty location that was explored was even the ABC office, right?
That is correct, it was.
Okay, was that also denied?
That was denied.
And do you know by whom?
I'm not sure right now. If I were to guess, I'd say Colonel Churchill. Yeah, but no, it was denied.
And do you have any idea why that was not a suitable alternative duty location?
Something about it not being within the chain of command, I believe.
Okay. But overall, it sounded like you were attempting to find a alternative duty location because you believe that had an alternative duty location been found for him, Airman Castle would show up to his appointed place of duty.
I don't know. It was worth a shot. I wanted him to show up. I think that he would have advantage for a while. I was not giving up on him.
Absolutely. And that brings me to my next point. You got a little bit emotional, I think, towards the end of the prosecution's questions about your desire for Airman Castle to get the help that he needs. Do you believe that Airman Castle would benefit from inpatient treatment, let's say at a treatment facility where it's round-the-clock support?
From a very non-medical opinion, yes, I believe that is the only thing that will help him right now.
Okay. And do you believe, well, let me ask you this. Have you checked in on him while he's been in confinement?
I have not directly, no. That's really bad about it. No, I've been on leave. I have talked to Mackenzie a couple of times and received some text from her, but no, I haven't checked on her.
Okay, and that's fine. I didn't mean to point out your leave. Obviously, your leave is well-deserved, well-earned. So you're not tracking that currently in the confinement facility that he's in, he does not have access to any of his medications?
No, I'm not tracking that.
Okay. And you can agree, like, not having access to medicine, being in a confinement facility that's got no windows, being in a confinement facility that's actually not military and is, belongs to Roosevelt County and Portales, that can lead to a lot of stressors.
I'm sure it can, yeah.
Okay. And so to my question previously about inpatient treatment, if ordered to go to an inpatient treatment, perhaps by the hearing officer, is that something that you think that Airman Castle could benefit from?
It's up to Lance. He can only benefit from it if he decides to follow the treatment plan.
Okay, and as far as you were aware, when he was last in inpatient treatment at Laurel Ridge, I think it was between December, it was the end of last year into early of this year, was that overall successful for Airman Castle?
I don't know. I did not know him prior to going into there.
Okay, but you didn't get any complaints from either the facility or anyone else in the chain of command about that period of time that he was there?
No complaints. I don't know that it was beneficial in actually helping treat his diagnoses, but no complaints whatsoever.
Okay, and when you say diagnoses, are you aware of what Airman Castle is actually diagnosed with?
Per the last yes.
Okay, and what are those diagnoses?
Do I have permission to share that?
Yes, I'm asking you the question. I don't need to know what medication on just the diagnosis.
Okay. Well, first I want to say, one thing he did tell me about going inpatient is he doesn't want to be drugged up and being in that brain fog. And I don't blame him, for whatever that's worth. And then in not getting his, especially ADHD medication in confinement and lisinopril, I believe, for, blood pressure is concerning as well. But anyway, his diagnoses are as follows. The first one is delusional disorder. The second one is narcissistic personality disorder. The third one is intermittent explosive disorder. The fourth one is, I'm going to butcher it, I think it's unspecified trauma disorder. And then the fifth one is ADHD.
Okay, thank you for that. I know you are not a medical professional in any way, but you've been in the military long enough. I think you've said you've supervised or you've supported, at this point, probably hundreds of airmen in your career. Do you agree, at least in part, that Airman Castle's behavior, specifically what he's charged with right now, could be explained and could be a result of the multiple diagnoses that he currently has?
I don't know. I mean, it could be the result of, it could be very well be the result of whatever mental health issues are going on, yes.
Okay. And I think earlier when you were answering some of the prosecution's questions, one of your issues with Airman Castle has been, like, you have maybe a hard time getting him to understand certain concepts, right?
No, I think he fully understands. He just immediately is combative against a different perspective.
Okay. And how about the medical evaluation board that he was currently in the process of an MEB? My understanding is that it's been since paused or canceled, I think might be the right word. What's your understanding of the MEB?
Yeah, so from my understanding, it was put on pause when he went into AWOL status. However, now that he is in confinement status, I'm not sure where that is, because he's not absent without leave. So I would track that down and see exactly. He may still be undergoing MEB while in confinement.
Okay. And when exactly was it paused? Was it paused the day he went into pretrial confinement? Was it paused prior to that?
No, it was paused prior to that. It was when he was in AWOL status.
Okay. And do you remember that particular date by any chance?
I do not know.
Okay, but it was the date that he officially went coded as AWOL status. Is that right?
It was either that day or shortly thereafter, within a couple of days.
How far along in the process was Airman Castle?
For the MEB?
Yes.
Not far at all. It was just, I don't even know that it went to the AMRA board to get looked at to being under an MEB. So he was very early in it.
Okay. Got it. And then, have you ever taken a look at Airman Castle's social media?
Yeah.
Okay. And specifically, like, let's say his Instagram page.
Yes, I have looked at his Instagram page.
Would you say, I guess, what percentage of his social media content was related to his ongoing case with leaders at Cannon Air Force Base?
Sure. At least recently, since I have known Lance, right, since late May, I would say 90%.
Okay. And do you recall at various points, and even in his social media, Airman Castle was talking about wanting a court-martial, wanting his day in court, and effectively demanding that process?
Yes, it was prevalent all over his social media.
Okay. And do you believe that if he were able to go to his court-martial, that would bring him at least some sort of satisfaction, regardless of the outcome? but the fact that he has that court-martial pending would bring him some sort of satisfaction.
I think a pending court martial would bring him temporary satisfaction, yes.
Okay. Got it. And I know you did not have a lot of input as to pretrial confinement, but given that you are his shirt and you've spent quite a little bit of time with him, do you believe that a less restricted restraint perhaps would be appropriate in this case?
What options are available?
Well, that is for the hearing officer to decide if that's what he wants to do, but when I say less severe forms of restraint, that could be anything from restriction to a particular area. It could be going inpatient treatment facility, for example, finding alternative duty location, anything absent sitting at Roosevelt County for the next X months until this trial.
Yeah, I think it's worth a shot. I don't want to sit there for the next 6 months.
Okay. And other less forms of restraint could also include perhaps exploring those alternative duty locations like the chapel and maybe the ABC office. Do you think that could be suitable if allowed?
I don't know. I'm not sure what the temperature is on base about it. I have no problem exploring those options for him.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Sergeant Calhoun, I do not believe I have any further questions for you. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, just had one question for you. This is Lieutenant Colonel Lucy. So earlier you said that, he still wants court-martial. You think it would bring him temporary satisfaction? Can you expound on that?
Yeah.
Like, if you went one way or the other?
Yeah, I think that if he, I think no matter what, it's not going to satisfy him, ultimately. I'm not sure what will, but I know that his satisfaction will not necessarily rely on a guilty or not guilty verdict. It will rely more on those being those complicit, especially in the first court martial, being held accountable.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. I'd like to take a little break, let everybody go to the bathroom. I'm going to call somebody here. Yep. Okay, are there any further questions from either side?
Not from government, sir.
Nothing from defense, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your testimony. You're dismissed. Please don't discuss your testimony with any other witnesses. We're going to take 5-10 minutes, if that's okay with everybody. Yeah.
Good with me, sir.
Okay. So everybody grab your seats.
Senior Master Sergeant Hunt, is that you?
It is me. How are you all?
We're good. So, you can't see us, but we're in the courtroom, and with the PCRO officer, pretrial confinement officer, Senior Airman Castle is present. His support people are here, I'm here, and then his defense counsels are on Teams with us, so they can hear you through there. But for our sake in here, we're just going to ask that you make sure you're projecting and enunciating. Copy?
Will do.
Cool beans.
Yeah,
all right,
copy.
thank you. All right.
Okay, before we get started with our second witness, just want to remind government and defense, we're here for determining 4 things, right? That an offense, trial by court-martial, has been committed, that it was the defendee that committed it, and that confinement is necessary because he either will not appear at trial, pre-trial hearing, or investigation, or that he will engage in serious criminal misconduct. And that less severe forms of restraint are inadequate. So let's try to focus a little bit on that and cut out any kind of extraneous conversation. I did get a chance to talk to Captain Smith about the initial objection to the entire PIF. We looked it up. I think it is still admissible, although most of it won't be pertinent. It does still establish a history of the members' activity in the military. So I don't think I'm going to put a lot of weight in it, just because a lot of it won't be pertinent, but I would still like to keep that in evidence.
Copy that.
Okay, so moving on to our second witness. This review is to determine whether the accused should continue to be held in pretrial confinement. I will take your testimony for this purpose. However, before testifying, you must be sworn in. I know you're with us remotely, but please stand and raise your right hand. Let us know when you're good. Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I affirm.
Okay. Please state your complete name, rank, duty, organization, and station.
Yes, I am DeMarcus Allen Hunt, Senior Master Sergeant, stationed at Canton Air Force Base, Senior Enlisted Leader for the 27th Special Operations Force Support Squadron.
Okay. Thank you. That will turn over to the government.
Thank you, sir. Hi, Senior Master Sergeant Hunt. This is Captain Blackburn. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you good, Captain.
Thank you. How long have you been serving in your current position?
I arrived at Canton Air Force Base on July 27th of 2022, and I've been sitting as a Senior Enlisted Leader ever since then.
When did you first come to know Senior Airman Castle?
I first came to know Senior Airman Castle on May 28th. That was the first day that he had reported to our command section to meet with the command team for working our community flight.
We've already heard kind of the details of what that meeting entailed, but can you tell me what was your perspective of Senior Airman Castle's behavior and attitude during that meeting?
During that meeting, with myself, the Major Boyd, and our First Sergeant Matthew Calhoun, Airman Castle came in and, he wanted to tell the story of what had happened to him over the, past couple of years. Initially, I thought he was an upstanding, upfront airman, right? He was telling, what had happened to him. He didn't give me any signs of any issues on, disciplinary. I think he was looking for help in reference to his current situation. But at that time, we didn't really know much about what had transpired in the past. I did see at times that he had become a little aggressive when explaining things that had transpired in the past, or if anything that myself or First Sergeant had said to him that may have triggered him. He, would cut us off or say, hey, this is, one thing that triggers me, or, just go into those issues. So, on first meeting him, I felt like, he was, upfront, he was clear on what his intent was, what had happened to him. We didn't see any issues with him there. So he's just fine working on that.
Following that meeting, how often did you communicate with Senior Airman Castle?
The day after we met with Major Boyd, we also sat down in the First Sergeant's office, just myself and the First Sergeant, just to discuss more of, how it was working in the FSS, getting them into, duty times, report times. But after that, right, most of my communication with Airman Castle was done through our First Sergeant. I would give him, hey, what his duty day should entail. And the First Sergeant will, pretty much say, hey, this is what's going on. So it was very minimal at first in reference to communicating via text, and then heightened a little later when we were expecting him to come to work.
How many times would you say you talked with him in person?
In person, I would say 3 times. In reference to we've had, direct conversations. Twice was at the office and then once was at his home.
During those interactions, what was his behavior like?
The first one. The second one, I think he was, getting a little bit irritated with things that were going on with his TPMs and, the CDE results. So I think that, he had got to his wit's end, and I think he was just, like I said, a little bit irritated. He was clear on his IED diagnoses and stating that, hey, he can, pretty much get aggressive any moment. Pretty much, that was the second time meeting with him. And then the third time at his home, he was explaining, what had transpired between himself and Senior Ike at the med group. So, of course, I think he was just a little wired from that. Of course, still a little aggressive in reference to, explaining exactly what had transpired, why, he felt the need to respond to Senior Ike the way he did. Pretty much just highlighting, his diagnoses with the IED, and not knowing exactly how he would respond if in those situations again. So I would just say he was a little, wired, which could seem a little aggressive, but nothing too aggressive for the first one.
I'm sorry, but I think you're a little close to your microphone, so sometimes it's kind of making noise over you. So can you just make sure that have a good distance so we can hear you okay?
Absolutely. Is this better?
That's much better. Thank you. In your conversations with him over text message, what was his behavior or tone? And I know tone is hard to convey from text message, but in your opinion, what was his behavior and tone in those text messages?
Yeah, well, at first, right, we had the sit-down discussion, so there was no need to text, and then after that, once it was around June 11th, June 9th, when he began to ask us, hey, for a different work schedule, letting us know that, hey, he had been feeling like he's, threatening for his life, and pretty much giving us, direction on exactly what's expected of us from as a command team. Telling us just how we need to support him a little bit more. I would say around June 10th is when he pretty much told us that, hey, gloves are going to be off now, and that, you all will start pretty much doing what you're supposed to do as leaders. He's going to have to take it to another step. So it became a little threatening after that. Pretty much just him trying to highlight that we're not supporting him the way that he felt we needed to. So I would say that, after that June 9th discussion, and we were expecting him to be at work on June 10th, is when we began to see the transition from him working with us and pretty much, communicating constantly and stuff to say what's going on with him, to him feeling like that he wasn't getting the support he needed. And it turned a little bit aggressive in those text messages.
Was there ever a time in those text messages or the personal conversations that you felt he was being disrespectful to you?
Oh yeah, numerous of times. Like I said, after June 11th, I felt as soon as you begin to be directive and telling us what you're not going to do, or telling us, hey, we're not listening to you, that anything we're telling you to do that is to get what he feels you've been diagnosed with. I think numerous times he has been disrespectful to us.
Did you ever address that disrespect with him?
On a few cases I responded to him and told him that, hey, just because you say respectfully doesn't change the fact that you were disrespectful in text messages. But as for face-to-face, no, I did not.
So when you said that to him in text messages, did he become more respectful after you told him he was being disrespectful?
No, as a matter of fact, he became a little bit more disrespectful. Pretty much calling him a coward, right? And we leader, following Colonel Churchill, Colonel Burgess, Colonel Roach's directions as a senior and as the leader. And I pretty much just explained how I was feeling him. So for sure, got more disrespectful after the June and that text message.
Were there ever times that you conveyed to Senior Airman Castle that he was under orders from yourself or other superiors to do tasks or be places that he did not comply with?
Absolutely. After the first one was in June of nice conversation with that Sunday when he was asking us if he needed to come into work. He didn't feel safe. I told him that, hey, we still want him to report, on June, that Monday. And he did contact our first sergeant and say, hey, you know what, this is what's going on with him on that day. I can't remember, the exact details, but and he went to the chaplain that day and was seen. And then after Colonel Churchill gave his direct orders to him, I was in constant communication with him in Capitol, starting on the 26th of June, telling him that, hey, he was in violation to Colonel Churchill's direct order based on report to duty at 0730 every duty day.
Are you aware of a time that Senior Airman Castle received a no contact order?
I am. He was issued a no contact order by Colonel Churchill around about the 25th to the 27th of June. Remember the exact date, but he was issued that read to him verbatim.
Do you remember any of the individuals listed in that contact order?
Yes, from the top of my head, I don't have a copy of it on me. I know Chief Jessica Baldwin, who's our prior mission support group chief. She was listed on there as a member that he should not contact. And Master Sergeant Carey from LRS. I don't want to just holler out names, but those are the two that I'm sure remember them on that list.
But there were others as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware of a time that after that contact order, he then contacted those individuals?
Yes. As a matter of fact, immediately after the contact order, he sent a group text out on the 26th of June. And he added Chief Baldwin back to the conversation. Her 707 number, and that was after the order was given. So she was on the group text thread, pretty much, going against what, he had agreed to not contact these individuals.
Were you part of any of the conversations leading up to why that no contact order was given, or why those individuals?
We all knew that, he was making a lot of email messages go out to numerous people. We had a lot of individuals that didn't feel comfortable receiving those messages. And, felt like they didn't have anything to do with it, or they just felt like it was harassing behavior. So, we all had those discussions, before to say, hey, for those individuals that don't feel comfortable getting this, what can we do to ensure that, we're not affecting them in any way? And that pretty much sparked the need of a no contact order to be, put in place. So I would say yes, that I was a part of a few conversations that hey, we needed to, do a no contact order. But I'm sure I wasn't driving forceful.
Have you seen the current charge sheet in this case?
The current charge sheet, no, I haven't taken time to read it all the way through. Only the TDY, pretty much the whole month of July. Apologies for that.
Oh, no, that's okay. You mentioned that immediately following the no contact order, he group texted individuals in that no contact order. Are you aware of any other times that he contacted individuals in that no contact order?
Yes, so, of course, he did a few Canon emails where he emailed everyone in the mission support group. He also emailed everyone in the wing. I'm pretty much sure those individuals, like Master Sergeant Carey, those individuals are listed in the LRSO. That was a group that was on one of his emails. And then also I've noticed that I've been blind copy on the most recent emails that he sent out, and I'm not sure who else was blind copied on those. I want to assume, but the individuals that were on that no contact list as well.
Are there any other times that you can think of that, I know you mentioned a few, but leading up to the referral of this case, that Senior Airman Castle was given a direct order to do something and he didn't do it?
Yes, I think that, anytime that, he was told to do something within the scope of duties with FSS, his resistance was not hey, I'm not doing that, right? It was more, hey, this is going to get my medical diagnosis and I can't do that. And then, any interaction he's had with Colonel Churchill, during any type of proceeding or disciplinary actions, from the beginning of those processes to the end, was complete disrespect in reference to and not follow the orders, directed by Colonel Churchill. So we've seen those in some cases.
Was there a time that Senior Airman Castle was issued an LOR by Colonel Churchill?
Yes.
Were you physically present for the issuance of that LOR?
I was, yes.
Can you tell me what that interaction between Senior Airman Castle and Colonel Churchill was like?
Yes. So that happened around the 25th of June that week. Coming in, that morning, I thought everything would be okay, that he would, come in, just accept the LOR and, go. But surprisingly, when he walked in, his phone's out to record Colonel Churchill just reporting. He did not push her salute. He did not give Colonel Churchill the proper customs and courtesy. And he was really, really aggressive in the way that he stared down Colonel Churchill, very uncomfortable setting, where he was pretty much, balling his fist up, tensing his muscles, and, biting his jaw while he was looking directly at Colonel Churchill as he spoke to him. That was probably the most aggressive that I've seen Castle be. I think that was probably the most disrespectful current disciplinary actions, presented to an airman that I've ever seen in my 18 years of service. When Colonel Churchill was done reading everything out to him, he pretty much turned off and left. During that time, he even pulled his phone out, placed it halfway across the table in Colonel Churchill's face. Very disrespectful.
How long had Colonel Churchill? Sorry, go ahead.
That pretty much, concluded that, and then he left.
At that point in time, how long had Colonel Churchill been his group commander?
Oh, hadn't been long at all. We'll say one and a half weeks, maybe 2 weeks, since the change of command from Roach.
Are you aware of any interactions that Colonel Churchill had with Senior Airman Castle outside of that LOR that would warrant such disrespectful behavior?
Outside of that LOR, I'm not as anything, can think of anything that, Airman Castle had done that was disrespectful.
Did Colonel Churchill ever say anything to him before that LOR that you think would warrant Senior Airman Castle being disrespectful to Colonel Churchill?
Not at all. That was Colonel Churchill's first time meeting him. I will tell you, we were all surprised at the way that he acted when he came in there by not knowing Colonel Churchill and not giving him a chance. As the new group mission support commander.
Were there any other times that you saw Senior Airman Castle use disrespectful language towards or in reference to Colonel Churchill?
I have not been physically present. After that LOR, I had a couple of sit-downs with our first sergeant. I'm pretty sure he gave his thoughts on Colonel Churchill. But I wasn't physically present to hear him say things. But, I do know that, on his social media pages, he has been very disrespectful to Colonel Churchill. Posting things that he usually wouldn't see anyone post. And then giving his opinion to it, which paints Colonel Churchill in negative light, or calling him a coward, calling him, comparing him to, the days of the Nazis, right? So it was those things that, I felt was disrespectful outside of the LOR.
You had mentioned some emails that he had sent out en masse to numerous listservs and individuals. How far up our chain of command would you say that those emails went?
One email, I believe, I don't have it in front of me. When the highs that I initially thought they were going up to Lieutenant General verifying who was our past commander, but then I realized that a lot of those were going up to the DOD and also our staff, which was surprising to me. So in my, from what I know, I think the highest one went to the Secretary of the Air Force.
And how widely were they dispersed by Senior Airman Castle?
I hadn't seen an Air Force call, but I had seen half of all messages go out to where I was contacted by my peers at Herbert Field, other installations that were pretty much saying, hey, checking on whether, we okay. And that's how I knew that it was that, it disseminated that why.
So you said that.
But, I think half time, but all.
You said that peers from other bases were reaching out to you to say, what's going on, making sure you're okay. What in the emails, if they said anything, led them to have those concerns?
Yeah, well, disrespectful language. One of the emails was stating that I was harassing him. One of the messaging was stating that we weren't doing our job as a command team to make sure he was taken care of. So it was verbiage like that sparked them to reach out and say, hey, Senior, how are you holding up? And then of course, posting the video of me behind Colonel Churchill. He was issuing the LOR. Individuals saw that as well, so they made them reach out as well. So it was those acts.
How long have you been serving in the Air Force?
I've been serving the Air Force for 18 years, and 18 years, 4 months.
Given your long experience in the military and your experience as a senior enlisted leader, and your experience in dealing with Senior Airman Castle, do you believe that if he was given an order going forward to be somewhere at a certain place or time, that he would appear?
I do not. In our experiences, as a matter of fact, I'll just tell you on June 27th was the last day he told me that he was unable to follow orders, and that me contacting him was a sign that I was being deceitful. That was the day that I asked him when he reported to work. So I think that he is not able to follow orders. That's coming from his own words. Telling me that, he will not follow moving forward.
Do you believe he will continue to contact individuals he was ordered not to contact?
I do, because he's not able to follow orders, from what he stated. I don't think he feels it applies to him. I truly believe that he feels that the orders that are given to him are not fair or illegal. He thinks that, in contacting individuals, even though he's been told not to, that he's not doing anything wrong.
Do you think he will continue to widely disseminate emails outside of his chain of command?
I do. I think that, he's adamant about getting his story out there. He's adamant about showing that, people know that what's going on at Cannon is way up. He wants to get his narrative out there to tell his story. And I think he's going to use every means to do that, whether it's social media or his government email account.
You mentioned his Instagram page. Have you viewed that page?
Not recently. One time I reviewed it when my peers reached out and told me that I was on there. And of course I had to go check it out and say, what's going on. But recently I hadn't, but I did see it and see the video he had posted up myself in Colonel Churchill.
Was that a public-facing Instagram page, or did you have to request to be his friend in order to see his content?
It was open to the public.
Thank you. I have no further questions for you at this time. However, defense may have some questions for you, or our pretrial confinement officer may have some questions for you. So just stay on the line until they release you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, over to the defense.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senior Hunt. This is Captain Toronto. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And he will.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. Senior Hunt, I want to ask you, are you familiar with the requirements for pretrial confinement?
The requirements, no, I haven't been ready to know exactly, what else is done on that.
Okay, and that's fine. And so one of the requirements for continued pretrial confinement that the hearing officer has to consider is that confinement is so necessary because it's foreseeable that the prisoner will not appear at trial, pretrial hearings, preliminary hearings, or investigation, or the prisoner will engage in serious criminal misconduct. So I want to start with the first part, that the prisoner will not appear at trial or anything related to pretrial hearings. As far as you were aware, in terms of Airman Castle's last court-martial, did you ever learn that Airman Castle had ever missed any pretrial or trial dates for his previous court-martial?
No, ma'am, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. And how about the appointment that Airman Castle had with Colonel Churchill for the Article 15? Were you aware that he showed up for that?
I was not aware that he showed up. I was informed that he did not show up to Colonel Churchill's office to be presented with that.
Okay, so you were informed that Airman Castle had not shown up to receive the Article 15?
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you remember who informed you of that?
Absolutely. My first sergeant, when I asked how did it go, it didn't go well at all, and the Capitol decided not to go.
Okay. And perhaps you might be confusing it with referral of charges, and that's fine. So I'm going to backtrack. So for the Article 15 that was offered to Airman Castle a couple weeks ago, Airman Castle did actually show up and did receive the Article 15. And in fact, he actually turned it down at the demand of trial by court-martial. Were you aware of that?
Yes, ma'am. I apologize. I was TDY during that time. Chief Walworth was in the seat during that time.
Okay, yeah, and that's totally fine. That's what I had figured. Okay, so you're tracking that Airman Castle actually turned down the Article 15 and demanded trial by court-martial.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In part of your discussions with him over time, has he ever talked to you about like his distrust in leadership, about how he feels that he's been wronged?
Yes, ma'am. Numerous of times. The one thing I will say is that, you know, the times that I've talked to Senior Counsel, at no time did his story ever change. When he talked about distrust in leadership, it was more towards the logistics readiness squadron's command team, stating that, you know, hey, you know, he felt like, you know, they had done dirty things to him during his previous court-martial, and things for taking things out, you know, and he was just stating that he had caused them numerous of lies. So that's the reason that he felt the need to not trust them.
Okay. And you, in part of these discussions that you would have with Airman Castle, would you ever hear him talk about, like, wanting people in his chain of command to be held accountable?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think the first conversation we had on May 28th, I asked him, I said, you know, what is your end goal with this? He said he didn't want to leave until he saw everyone that had wronged him in the chain of command to their held accountable. And that he would die for it, and that he would fall on the sword. He's willing to die for it. He doesn't know if they are willing to die for it, but he is, and that's what he wants to see.
Okay, and you can agree that part of holding some people accountable that he believes have wronged him could also include, like, demanding trial by court-martial.
I have to agree with that, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and this is so important to Airman Castle, correct?
It is, but I will give him that. And
Okay.
the story, they want, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and it's so important to him that he described it as, like, he would die for this, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any concerns that he would not show up for his court-martial, the trial itself?
You know, to be honest with you, I do, but I think that it is not in alignment with the way Airman council wants it to go, whether that holding them accountable via court martial, or maybe as a trial. I don't think he would show. I think he's proven that to us in the past. I think that as soon as it doesn't go his way, I'm not sure, I'm not confident to expect that he will be present every day.
But Senior Hunt, you could agree that you have nothing to base that off of, correct? For example, historically, he's been court-martialed and he's had the same exact, almost identical charges, and he's showed up for that, correct?
During court-martial, that's what, I've been told, right, because I wasn't tracking that case in general. But I do know, how he performed when directed to report to Crown Church Show, and he did not. That's what I'm basing it off of. As it pertains to him trying to hold the wing accountable, maybe he would continue on what I've seen. He may not show.
Okay, and again, I want to make sure that you understand the distinction here, that for trial, specifically trial, the only thing that you were basing that off of is times that he hasn't shown up for work or he's been disrespectful to Colonel Churchill, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, but you agree that he has told you, and probably others, that he would die for his day in court. He would die to hold people accountable.
I do agree, yes, ma'am.
Okay, understood. So, likely that if given the opportunity to have his day in court, present the evidence, present argument, Aaron Castle would absolutely take advantage of that.
I do believe he would take advantage of it, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Senior Hunt, were you a part of any of the discussions of pretrial confinement that happened last Friday?
I was not around. I've been on leave since the 10th of July.
Okay. Since the time that you've known Airman Castle, have you noticed change in his behavior?
Yes, I would say, saying earlier, I watched his temperament change as the days passed.
Yeah, and you described his behavior changing pretty quickly at certain points, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Almost, would you say, like, unusual, like how quick his behavior can change?
Because he's always been frustrated. It's unusual to, individuals that would seem normal, I guess you would say. But because he always came in frustrated, I knew it was, capable of getting to that point, but it is unusual. Yes, ma'am. That's your question.
Okay. And I think you said you have been serving for about 18 years, is that right?
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And actually, Airman Castle has already hit, I believe, 19 years. Are you aware of that?
I am, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, given the fact that he is a 19-year senior airman, coupled with the fact that he's easily disrespectful to Colonel Churchill, as we've seen it, that he sends mass emails to leaders in the chain of command, and including SECAF, for example, his Instagram posts about him being, angry with the chain of command and being, as you described, disrespectful. You can agree that this is all behavior of someone who is potentially not well.
I will agree with that, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So one of the things that the preliminary hearing officer, I apologize, the pretrial confinement hearing officer will have to also assess is whether or not any lesser severe forms of restraint are inadequate. If Airman Castle were allowed the opportunity to get out of confinement and either be restrained to a particular area, such as Clovis, New Mexico, or perhaps be sent to an inpatient treatment at a facility, do you believe that that is adequate to address the needs that he has?
I I'm not sure. Every council has said to me during our first conversation that he didn't want any type of inpatient treatment because it would take away from his family and his dogs. I don't know if he would, want to stay there because he said support system is his son and his animals. Do I believe that he would benefit from being outside of confinement? I think he would in reference to being around his son and his animals. But, for me, I just don't think I could trust that in reference to, just past behavior. It's my opinion, though.
Okay. So is your opinion that he should remain in pretrial confinement?
I think I agree that he should remain in pretrial confinement because of how sporadic his actions have been in the past, and no one knowing exactly what his next thoughts would be and what his next actions would be, especially his behavior, on social media, his behavior on utilizing government, email access. I think him not having those things would improve his situation.
Senior Hunter, you can agree, though, that some of those access to items that the chain of command possibly is concerned about could be resolved pretty quickly. For example, his email access could be revoked, which is what I believe happened about 2 weeks ago, where Airman Castle did not have access to his email. Could that potentially resolve that particular issue?
Well, the email issue, yes, ma'am. But, the social media issue does not, or he's taking all documentation and posting it up there. I don't believe it would stop him from doing those things.
Okay. And I won't get into too much of the social media. That's not a charge that he's currently facing right now in terms of being able to freely post on his social media. Obviously, as it relates to the duty hours, that's different. But of course, Airman Castle, you could agree, has the ability to post on his own social media if he wanted to, outside of duty hours. Senior High, have you gone, I don't believe you have you gone to visit Airman Castle since he's been in confinement at Roosevelt Detention Center?
Can you repeat the first half of that, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't believe you have, but have you been able to visit him since he's been at Roosevelt County?
I have not, no, ma'am.
Okay, so you're not aware of, the conditions that he's currently in?
I am not, no, ma'am.
Okay, you're not aware that he currently sits in a holding cell that's got no windows?
Not aware of that, no.
Okay, and that he's the only military member that's there right now?
No, ma'am, wasn't aware of that.
Okay, and you're also not aware that he doesn't have access to any of his medications?
I was not aware of that.
Okay, and so knowing that about the conditions that he's currently in, do you still believe that there are lesser severe forms of restraint that are inadequate, such as inpatient treatment at a facility where he can actually get the help that he needs?
Hearing that, I wasn't aware of those, those living conditions that he was in. I do believe that, the Air Force can find a different way of constraining him to control his sporadic behaviors.
Understood. Okay. And at the very least, obviously that's not your decision, but the Air Force, if there are some other adequate forms of restraint, that those should be at least explored. Would you agree on that?
I would, yes.
Okay. Senior Master Sergeant Hunt, I thank you so much. I do not have any other questions for you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Great, Senior Hunt, this is Lieutenant Colonel Lucy. I just had one question. At the beginning of our discussion, you mentioned, or you used the term aggressive several times, in reference to the defendant's behavior. Can you kind of explain what you meant by that? Because you also said that you did not feel it was threatening, I think at one point, or maybe I misheard you.
Yeah, just being a senior leader, right? We learn to have emotional intelligence when dealing with airmen that may be going through situations. But what I think about his aggression is that raised voice, extremely loud, gets loud when he gets emotional or passionate about a specific topic. Changes skin color or gets red, he bites his lips, right, or bites his teeth. So that's what I meant by we see the heightened aggression when talking with them sometimes.
Okay, and then I think there was another portion during when you were discussing the interaction with Colonel Churchill when he was serving in the Article 15. Did you say he raised his voice to Colonel Churchill?
Well, the LOR,
Or elsewhere?
issuance, right? That's when he was pretty aggressive with his nonverbals. And then he came back to close the LOR is when the conversation happened. I don't have the exact date for you, but that's we witnessed him cut Colonel Churchill off numerous of times and raise his voice to Colonel Churchill on a few times as well when he disagreed with the duty standards that were laid out to him.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anything further that either side requires of this witness?
Nothing from the government, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Nothing from defense, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Senior Hunt, thank you for your testimony. You are dismissed. Please do not discuss your testimony with any other witnesses. Are there any other witnesses or evidence to be presented?
Yes, sir. Government has one additional witness, that is Senior Master Sergeant Ike. Given the time, we would like to take a short recess for lunch if that is allowed, and then resume with Senior Master Sergeant Ike.
Okay. How long do you guys need to lunch?
My view on this is that I can actually be a very brief witness. I know everybody's probably hungry, but what are we talking about here? 10, 15 minutes at most for each day?
I'm imagining it's going to be at least as long as Senior Master Sergeant Hunt was.
Why? He had very limited interaction with them. Why do you have to ask him that many questions?
Well, when we put him on, we'll find out.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Sergeant Ike. Go ahead.
If we could, I just being respectful of time, the defense doesn't need a comfort break at all or a lunch break. We would like to press, considering how late we did get started, unfortunately. If the government really needs a lunch break, could we offer like a 20-minute break? Would that be enough just to grab something to eat and proceed?
Yeah, why don't we split the difference and do a 20-minute break, just to allow people to grab some food and water and that kind of stuff, and then we'll come back at about 13:20. Okay, thank you. Okay. This review is to determine whether the accused should continue to be held in pretrial confinement. I'll take your testimony for this purpose, however, before testifying, you must be sworn in. Please stand and raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this manner now in this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. That's right. Okay. Go ahead and have a seat. Please state your complete name, rank, duty, organization, and station.
Full name, Tanner Reich, Senior Master Sergeant, 27 Special Operations Logistics for Unit Squadron, Canada Coast based in Mexico.
Okay. Thank you for coming in and bearing with us today. We'll turn it over to the government.
Thank you, sir. Hi, Senior Ike. How long have you been serving in your current role?
We're here for the 27th Logistic Readiness Squadron. I've been here since November of last year, so about 8-9 months.
In the same role the entire time?
Yes.
When did you first come to know Senior Aaron Castle?
In person, January of this year, but via TTM during his time in medical treatment facility in November, December timeframe.
Your first interactions with him in January, what were those like?
They seemed to be a decent conversation. Met at Starbucks the first time when he returned to Kennedy Air Force Base. Had a decent conversation and just introductory style at best.
Everything pretty normal interaction.
For the most part, it was a normal interaction, no issues.
What was your assessment of him as an airman at that point?
As an airman, he was lots of questions, regressed specifically back to things of the past. We consistently go back to those. Whereas I would try to work towards future goals and things of that nature.
Was at that time respectful in his conversations with you?
Yes.
Was there a time that you saw his behavior start to escalate?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was primarily, as I said before, it was the continuous regression towards the past. Conversations of things like holding him accountable to the failure to pay his debt with the TLF would be things that would potentially irritate him.
Who was his commander at the time?
Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez.
Did you work with the command team to address some of these concerns that you had with him?
Yes.
What was his behavior like in interactions to those?
For his for Airman Castle.
Anytime you corrected him or gave him guidance on things that you expected of him, whether that was you directly or through commander, what was his reaction?
Lots of questions. Why should I have to pay this? And then it was, okay, I'll go have a conversation, more questions, and then hypotheticals, such as if I was a millionaire, why would I have to pay, why should I have to pay this if I still don't think I need to pay this? Things of that nature.
Was there ever a time that he stopped working in LRS?
Right when he came back from the facility was when he started working with MSG, so he did not come back to the LRS to work within the squadron. Started in January.
But you still had, because he was part of MSG, you still have regular contact with him?
Correct, because he is still an LRS airman. Even on the books today, he still administratively falls under the LRS.
Did your interactions with him begin to taper off as he started to have duties elsewhere?
Yes.
Were you still involved in the administrative pieces with his both care and feeding and command directions?
Yes, as far as the administrative side, from everything from his PIP to his convalescent leave, working with the med group for his travel voucher, I had a large role in ensuring that he got the travel voucher days for the time that he actually traveled and working with the TOPA office at that time.
Were you part of conversations to make sure that he was getting any accommodations that he needed?
Yes.
Did those discussions include making sure he had ample opportunity for medical appointments and or accommodations, whether those were physical medical appointments or mental health medical appointments?
Yes, anytime that he would be at work, and if from what I'm tracking, that he requested to go see mental health, the chaplain, the mindset was to let him go and do those things for his care.
Did you ever confirm that he followed through on receiving all the appointments that he scheduled?
Followed through to make sure that he was getting the care that he needed, but due to the HIPAA violations, the only thing I could be told was if he showed up that they wouldn't be able to specifically tell me, but I have seen him in the lobby of mental health while I've done some other care for other airmen.
Were you ever briefed on times when he didn't show up for medical appointments or didn't utilize resources that he was told to utilize?
The only time that I've been aware that he may have missed some medical appointments is only when the med group puts out the list of these are missed medical appointments across the wing.
And he was on
And he was on that, I believe, twice, but I believe it was also for meetings that he wasn't planning on going to or had said that he wasn't going to before. But I don't know.
So you did seek clarification as to why they were missed?
Yes.
And he did provide a reason as to why they were missed?
Yes.
Was there ever a time that you had personally interacted with him and he got aggressive towards you?
Yes, this was in regards to the, as I mentioned before, the failure to pay. He was given an LOR from the commander. I was the person facilitating that documentation. He provided a response while he was on convalescent leave. When he returned from the convalescent leave, it was provided a response, needed a signature. On one particular Friday, I was reached out to the FSS shirt because that's where he was working at the time to discover.
Sorry, I want to back up a little bit. You're running a little quickly. I'm just trying to follow along. So you said he got an LOR that he needed to sign for. Was that the initial, or was that in his response?
That was for provided response.
Okay. Did you have conversations with him before the LOR was issued about the LOR?
Yes.
What were those interactions like?
That interaction, again, was the same thing. How can this be done? I shouldn't have to pay this. I'm innocent in this. When I get the 138 complaint done, that's when I'll be reimbursed for all this, and I don't have to pay for that. And this is awful.
Were those conversations, did you ever get the sense that he was just agitated, or would you say he had like aggression in those conversations?
At that point, I would just say just agitated by it, and would regress back to all the things of the past.
Okay. And then, so first part done, then he has to sign for actually having, given his response and decision made. How much time had gone between those two processes?
So the day that he received the LOR was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was the day before his surgery for his shoulder. Went on to convalescent leave 6 months after that. So there was a substantial amount of time, well over a month and a half.
But the second time when you interacted with him again, he was even more agitated than the first time, despite the length of time that had passed.
Yes.
What was that second interaction like?
That second interaction, again, I was in the mental health lobby of the med group. I was there for another airman specifically. I had been reaching out to the FSS shirt to several times to do this next part of the LOR. Having to see him walk in, let the FSS shirt know at that time, hey, he's actually here, gonna have a conversation with him, I'll let you know how it goes. That's when I had a conversation with him. It took a very interesting turn for his aggression. When I asked him what time he had today to do it, I said I had 1300 time slot. He's like, well, I'm off at 1300. I found that peculiar, asked him who said that he's off at 1300, he wouldn't give me an answer. And then I said, okay, suggested 1230 as an option. At that point, he said, no, I'd rather just do it next week. I was like, that's not an option. We're going to take care of this today. We need to close it out and work on the next step of that. Continuing to try to have a conversation with him, he turned around while standing at the reception desk and said, stop talking to me. Rolled his shoulders up in an aggressive manner, and then turned back around.
Just for visualization, our mental health lobby is fairly small, and you said he was at the reception desk. How far away from him were you at that point when you were talking to him?
I would say I was probably about, I was sitting in one of the seats at that time. I would say I was probably about 5 feet away to him.
And then he turned around, said, stop talking to me. What happened after that?
I disengaged when called as Shirt Master Calhoun, let him know that things had gone awry, more than what I expected, and that I was going to try to have one last engagement with him to see if we can close this out today and go from there. When engaged with Airman Castle again, said, hey, this is your last chance, we need to close this, and that's about the time that he got up into my face, within about 5 inches of my face. Said things of the nature of like, you don't deserve that strike, my breath stinks, and it was just downright disrespectful.
What was his tone and body initially?
Very aggressive. I felt like he was just trying to incite me to violence, but I wasn't going to fall into that trap, if you will.
Did you feel that others needed to assist you in this situation?
Yes, there was an individual behind the the desk. At that point, when he got on my face, I didn't want any further altercation to happen, so I asked the receptionist to call security forces and have them on the way to respond appropriately.
What happened after you said that to her?
That was as soon as that he got on my face. At that point, I told him to step back. I believe I said about 2 or 3 times. He finally stepped back, grabbed his things from the reception desk that he had on there, and proceeded to walk out of the building.
When you said he walked out of the building, we have 2 entrances into the med group. Did he try to walk out of the main front entrance or the back entrance by mental health?
The back entrance, and then walking out to the right to the front of the building where he was parked. At which point I repeatedly told him I ordered you to stay until security forces arrives to assess the situation, things of that nature was my intent. But I continually told him I ordered you to stay until security forces arrives.
He continued to walk away?
Correct.
Did he say anything to you as he was walking away?
The only thing that he said to me as he was walking away, as we were outside, where nobody else was present, was turn around, asking why I was still following him, where I repeated, hey, I'm ordering you to stay until security forces arrives.
Up until this point, or I guess around this point, was Master Sergeant Calhoun in charge of the care and feeding of him, or was that still something that somebody else was handling?
No, that was what Master Sergeant Calhoun was primarily doing. I was, as the head of assessor, I was just taking care of the admin pieces.
So when you called Master Sergeant Calhoun to kind of let him know what was happening, that you were going to try again to set a time for him to come in, did Master Sergeant Calhoun express any concerns of like, hey, not you, let me talk to him, anything like that?
When I disengaged?
Yeah.
No, he did not.
After you followed him to the parking lot, what happened?
When I followed him out to the parking lot, when I noticed that he was getting towards his vehicle, I gave a gap of about 10 yards or so as I followed him because I didn't want him to try to get up in my face again. Followed all the way to that point. He stopped, took a couple of pictures of me as I'm standing there in the rocks, got into his car and drove off.
Did you end up interacting with security forces that day?
I did, 100%. At that point, that's when I made a personal call to PDOC to let them know that the member is already leaving the facility, and that I would be there when they respond to the lobby.
Did you talk to anybody else about this incident?
At that time?
Yes, that day.
That day, yes. Spoke with security forces. They took witness statements from a number of people and just worked with security forces on that one. Also talked with a mental health provider afterwards. They kind of just put me to a room and had a conversation just to help me calm down.
In regards to Master Sergeant Calhoun, did you speak to him again?
Yes.
What was that conversation like?
That conversation was primarily like, hey, this is what I noticed. Just so you know, he is okay, that Damon Castle's okay, he is off the base, and that they'll check on him later. Master Sergeant Calhoun said that to you? Correct, yes.
Did you have a conversation with any of his leadership about the incident?
As soon as I returned, I did let my interim commander know about the incident at the time so that they would be aware of what happened, along with the chief.
Any of those individuals that you talked to, security forces, command team, Master Sergeant Calhoun, did any of them express concerns as to you approaching Senior Airman Castle in mental health?
No, not at all.
Did any of them think it was unusual that he acted that way?
100% yes.
Why?
Because of the aggressive way that it turned. To be honest with you, I did not expect that at all. It was not. In all honesty, if I would have known that that might have been something that would happen, I would never have done that in that lobby.
Have you had any interactions, either in person or other means of communication with Senior Airman Castle then?
I've only had 2 meetings. The first one was during the commander-directed evaluation. I was with Captain Abdullahi along with the medical team in the room with him during that conversation.
Have you ever received an email from Senior Airman Castle that discusses you and your leadership?
100% yes. There have been multiple emails on multiple levels, from everything from the 138 complaints, cease and desist memos to the wing commander, and then the most recent mass email stating that his intent was to do a jointer lawsuit. After all this time is going up, I believe, all the way up to the second level.
Did you feel that language that you used in those communications was disrespectful towards yourself?
I believe it was disrespectful on multiple levels, not to me personally, but to multiple levels of the leadership chain. I believe so, yes.
In what way?
Because the words in there were very demanding, tactically used when dealing with anybody. I do not believe it was respectful in any manner, and was not tactful at all.
Given the period of time that you worked with him from January of 2024 until basically that incident, do you believe that if he is given an order to appear at a certain location at a certain time, that he will follow that order?
For work-wise, no.
What about otherwise?
If it's in revolving this case or anything that has to do with going back to a court case, I believe that is his intent, and he will show for that.
If he is restricted to base, do you think he will appear where he needs to be if he's on base?
If he's restricted to base, as in living on the base and things of that nature?
Can't be base.
If he's restricted to the base, to be honest, I don't know if he would show up for work. I don't see that he's done any work in the past 6-7 months at all. You know, he does show to the work center, but I don't know of any work that he's actually done to push anything for mission impact, helping out with the units work, anything during the time that I saw.
If he is restricted to base or otherwise limited in areas he's allowed to travel, do you have any concerns if he runs into the individuals that he's alleged wronged him?
I know that in previous conversations with him that he has stated that he's not sure how he would react if he came across certain individuals that are of the things of the past, especially the issues that he had last year. So based off of that, I don't know how he would react around those folks, because that's what he said to me.
As part of his command team for an extended period of time, were you ever privy to conversations regarding services that were available to him for mental health, or whether that be on base or off base?
We have had TTMs that with him and a provider of mental health first in January, saying that some of the things that could be offered and going forward with a treatment plan with what's called PHP, post-hospitalization program, or partial hospitalization program, with groups, sessions and things of that nature, and that he would have a set appointments for those things at that time.
In those conversations, did anyone from his mental health team or who had your previous experience with him articulate that they had concerns that he would not use resources available on base, he would only use resources available off base?
At the first meeting that we had with the TTM, no, that was not a concern at that time. The only thing that I've seen subsequently is a continuous, in the emails that we spoke about earlier, was that he's not getting any treatment for mental health, and that he elicits that everybody in the mental health team naming a bunch of individuals that's complicit and not helpful to him.
So do you believe that if he was offered mental health services off base, that he would comply with those? Whether it's like inpatient or outpatient?
In regards to, so I only know that one of the questions that I had when one of the emails that I've seen said that, hey, I'm not getting any medical treatment, that I personally called up to my group and said, hey, is this true that he is not getting any treatments for unfortunately, due to the HIPAA violation, they said they can't tell me what things they have done for him specifically, but they did tell me that any airmen that are going through things, that they would offer the best care that they need, whether it's on base or off base. And so I can only imagine that within that response, I would believe that he's been offered those things if he needed those things as appropriate.
I don't have any further questions for you, but defense might have questions for you, and our PCRO officer might have questions for you, so stay in place and assist you.
Senior, this is Mr. Conway, civilian counsel. I've got a few things that I want to explore. I'll try to be quick with this. Firstly, I want to talk about sort of the offering of mental health treatment. Now, there's been a betrayal. Mental health at Cannon Air Force Base betrayed Senior Airman Castle. Did they not?
I don't see how you can say that they betrayed him. I don't know what context you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, right, because you don't know anything about this case. When Senior Airman Castle was originally ordered into pretrial confinement last year, mental health, in coordination with Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez, scheduled live pick and scheduled a TTM that they used as a pretext to tackle him at the front gate and send him into pretrial confinement. Did they not?
I wasn't the first sergeant at that time, but based off of what I know of that case at that time, that the original plan was for that TTM to happen, and that decision was not Colonel Vasquez's to arrest him at that time. That was made by somebody else, but I cannot confirm or deny, as I was not the first sergeant at that time.
Senior Airman Castle has a diagnosis of paranoia. He's paranoid delusional. Okay? You're aware of that?
I've heard that from the CDE, yes.
He's got a narcissistic personality disorder. I'll go through the whole list. Intermittent explosive disorder. He's got ADHD, and he's got high blood pressure, just to name a few. Isn't that all true?
I was actually not fully aware of the high blood pressure. I don't believe that one was on the CDE, but I'd have to review that one again.
Well, you were aware that the reason that he's in county jail is because after they put him in pretrial confinement, he had a towel over his head due to the high blood pressure and light sensitivity, and untrained airmen, 6 of them, did a very violent, and there's video. They did a violent cell extraction of him while he had a towel over his head and he was doing nothing but sitting on a bed, and they exacerbated the shoulder injury that he talked about that he needed a surgery for. So you are aware that part of the reason that he's in county is because there was a violent cell extraction at Cannon for which the airmen weren't trained for and used excessive force, injuring the shoulder.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, what's the question?
You're aware of that, right?
I'm aware of the video.
You're aware that occurred because we're talking about the disrespect and the tension.
Okay. I'm also aware
and
that
the paranoia and the fear.
I'm also aware that that was a compliance issue, and if there was a compliance issue, that they would work that through the compliance.
No, stop right there, Senior. Have you seen the video?
Senior,
have you seen the video? There's video from the cell.
Yes, I have seen that.
Mr. Conway, this is Lieutenant Colonel Lizzie. How is
okay, so you agree with me that he's sitting on the bed doing nothing
Mr. Conway?
with a towel over his head?
Mr. Conway.
Yes.
This is Lieutenant Colonel Lizzie. Please keep this pertinent to the 4 criteria that we laid out. This isn't, about the previous issue. This is about the 4 criteria that I need to make a decision on. It is.
Sir, you have to understand that it is. You have charges in front of you that are referred by a named victim. It's borderline a joke of an unnamed victim that it was referred charges and then ordered him into pretrial confinement. And then you have to understand on this concept of whether he's going to appear for court or not. You need to understand the background with Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez. So you have a paranoid delusional senior airman with 19 years of fairly unlimited service prior to that, who's scared of the command. He's scared of the command. Now, forget about the video. It's on video. I don't care whether you've seen it or not. But Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez, when you talked in your almost the very first question, Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez is who the transgressions are about. Senior Airman Castle, when Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez held accountable for lying to him. Isn't that right?
Lying to him in which case? As far as the
Well, this
reading
case
of
all
all base?
starts more than 2 years ago.
Yes.
The whole thing starts more than 2 years ago with a COVID vaccine refusal based on a religious exemption. Isn't that right?
I do not know, and as far as I'm concerned, any conversation that I've had since the beginning of my time as the first sergeant has nothing to do with the COVID vaccine.
Well, when we look at the 72-hour memorandum for pretrial confinement, when we look at paragraph for the hearing officer, B3, all of that.
I'm sorry, would you mind?
Basically, almost all of B3, all of the letters of counseling, everything, well, it's been a canon, relates to the relationship between him and Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez with respect to a COVID refusal. Right?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, we can disagree on that.
Okay.
But that's where it all starts. My headphones just back.
The way I look at it, sir, is no matter what the level is, if a person got vaccinated or not vaccinated,
Well, hold on.
the respect that somebody should have should still be the level for any person of any rank.
Senior?
Sure, go ahead.
Senior, I will let you know.
Mr. Conway, do you have any more questions?
Did you lose him?
You still there?
Headphones might have actually died.
I'm sorry, the iPhone's acting up. The transgressions that we're talking about with respect to Vasquez go back more than 2 years, right?
The transgressions of, which transgressions are you speaking of?
Well, you used the word transgression. The government asked you about almost the second question. Let me pull my notes up. Second or third. Let's see. The initial interactions were normal, and then it escalated, and and you talked about how Senior Vasquez would continuously tell you about sort of the transgressions of the past. I think those were your words, transgressions of the past, right?
That he would regress. I believe I used the word that he would regress to the things of the past.
Right. And one of those things that he was upset about was the fact that particularly Colonel Vasquez had lied to him, right, when he was aggressively arrested for the TTM. Right?
That was one of the things that he would claim, yes.
And in his paranoid delusional mind, he believed that mental health was complicit in him being tackled at the front gate.
Okay.
And so there was a complete loss of mistrust. There was a complete loss of trust with the mental health resources there at Cannon. Right?
He says that there's a loss of trust, but I didn't see a loss of trust between the provider that we had a TTM with at that time. No.
You were there for one meeting, right? With respect to the CDE?
I was there for the TTM in January, and then I was there for the CDE meeting in May, yes.
Right. You're there for two of them. Right. But here's my point in all of this. Whether he's going to show up for court or not. For more than a year. For more than a year since he was fully acquitted of everything in paragraph B3. Right? He's wanted Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez held accountable. And so he's wanted his day in court. He wants to be there so that he can share his story in court.
Okay. I don't see how putting himself in breaking rules and regulations and not showing up for work is the best way to go about doing that.
Well, he's paranoid delusional, and from the day that we had the acquittal, I was there, I represented him. We knew, everybody knew, including Burton and Churchill, that if you left him underneath the LRF, the paranoid delusional 19-year-old senior airman, there were going to be issues. And that's why the ADC interjected to try and actually get Castle to either the ADC's office or the chapel in completion of his medicine, which was almost done. Right? When Senior Airman Castle was at the finish line, he was on his way out the door. Isn't that right?
No, the MED process is not exactly that short of a process. It would still take.
Well, I'm aware of that. But it had already been going on for some time.
No, actually, the MED process started after the CDE once there was what was considered an unfitting diagnosis. As far as back to January, there was no considered unfitting diagnosis, which would push for what we call an AMRO. Because that was one of the questions I had asked at the beginning, that if he has these certain things, is he going to go to an AMRO? And I was told no. So the whole start of...
Did the LRS want to... Was the LRS refusing to remove him from their operational control because he was making these complaints about Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez in order to protect the chain?
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, it looked like that because I got a big phone referring charges and ordering him to pretrial confinement. You can see how it might look like that.
No, I don't believe so.
Now, no time, that's what it looks like. It freaks. Now, no time, Senior Airman Castle, you weren't afraid that he was ever going to hit you.
Actually,
I
was ready for him to try to hit me. I was concerned about that. Yes.
That's not what you told the ADC, was it?
No. What I actually told the ADC was that he did not hit me, and we did not have a physical altercation. But during that moment that he was in my face, yes, I had the thought that he might try to hit me, because anybody that steps up to somebody like that is typical to get into a physical altercation. And that is the reason why I asked security forces. I'm sorry, can I finish, please? That is the reason why I asked security forces to show up, so that I can make sure that if something actually happens, that we would have the appropriate authorities.
You told the ADC. Listen to me, Senior. You told the ADC that you were not scared of Castle, and you did not think Castle was going to touch you at any point.
I said I'm not scared of him, but that doesn't mean that I'm not thinking that he's going to try to hit me. I've been hit before. That doesn't scare me.
There's two parts to that. You also told the ADC that you did not think Castle was going to touch you at any point. Is it true? You told that to the captain.
I said that he did not touch me at any point, but did I have the thought that he would potentially touch me?
You said you did not think he was going to touch you.
Mr. Conway, is that documented anywhere in any of the evidence that you provided, that discussion with the ADC?
We can work on making sure that's memorialized.
And so what I will tell you is I did have a conversation with the ADC that I based off the fact that he did not hit me at that time, that I don't think that he would actually go to that level, because if he was able to restrain himself at that time, then I don't think he could hit somebody else either. Do I think in that moment that I was in potential danger? Yes. Do I think he held back appropriately, and am I glad that he did? Yes.
Senior, who's in your rating chain?
In my rating chain, it goes from the commander and then up from there.
Yeah. Which commander?
The LRS commander is my raider.
And that currently is that Colonel Bergen?
No, that would be Major SK currently for the LRS.
Oh, Major SK, who ordered pretrial confinement. Right. Okay. Senior, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, Captain Tirado, did you have anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay. The only question I had for you was, during the incident at the mental health clinic, what time frame did that take place?
That happened in the morning because we were discussing meeting at potentially 1 o'clock or 12:30.
Like June, July?
No, that was end of May, beginning of June. I'm sorry, end of May, beginning of June, so was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry.
Is there anything further either side requires of this witness?
Not from government, sir.
Negative, sir.
Okay. It appears now. Thank you for your testimony. You are dismissed. Please do not discuss your testimony with any of the other witnesses.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other witnesses or evidence to be presented?
No witnesses from the government, sir, but my understanding is defense does have that additional witness.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to call a witness, but Captain Tirado, in terms of the documentary evidence, what was was that provided?
Yes, that was. So, yes, sir, that's correct. No witnesses for the defense at this point. We're not going to call Master Sergeant Garvin, who we initially intended to call. So the only other piece of evidence the defense would be offering for your consideration is Defense Exhibit Alpha, which was dropped in a Teams page for you. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. If not, I do know that Airman Castle does have a hard copy that he'd like to give you for your review and consideration when you go and deliberate.
Okay. Yeah, let me just confirm I have that on the disk. Okay, yeah, I'll grab the hard copy just to make sure. I'm pretty sure it's on here somewhere, but it's kind of disorganized.
I may have one of the maybe perhaps confinement folks grab it. Oh, okay. Thank you, Airman Navista.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the defense?
Sir, the only other thing is that Airman Castle would like to take a few minutes to address you. Right at his table, he's allowed to just stand where he's at, and other than that, we do not have anything else.
Okay, sure. Airman Castle, sounds like you wish to make a statement. Do you wish to make a sworn or unsworn statement?
Sworn would be fine, sir.
Okay.
Sir, this will be an unsworn statement.
Unsworn.
Unsworn, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. I just want to share a few things that I had a couple of days to write notes about. So first and foremost, my medication issues, I'll just start with. It's a complete mess. I've been confinement for 8 days now, and just like last time, it just takes time for them to get my medication to me. The dangers of me not receiving lisinopril, which is my blood pressure medication, is dire because it says, after stopping lisinopril suddenly, the patient may experience a sudden marked increase in blood pressure known as rebound hypertension, which increases the load on vital organ systems of the body, such as the heart, kidney, and brain. This eventually leads to an increased risk for heart attack and heart failure, cerebrovascular accidents, and kidney damage. And that was just one out of the 6 I'm still not getting. I'll move on from the medication issues. And I'll go on to physical issues. So I specifically asked Colonel Bergen through a text message, if I am arrested, to respectfully please not be arrested with my shoulder behind my back due to my recent surgery that I had. And it goes on deaf ears again because they do put my hands behind my back and keep me in that way actually up until the transport to Cannon, which has severely injured my shoulder again. And I don't say any of this, all the to get brownie points or anything like that. These are just straight facts. I would have sworn to testify if I could have, but it's an unsworn statement. Other things are like insomnia, that I'm having issues with sleeping during jail. I also had surgery on my left knee. And these surgeries are from the cell extraction that happened last year due to the assault charges that I was acquitted of, that I was accused of, when in fact it was opposite. I have scheduled appointments coming up that I'm still in jail for, so I'll miss if I go back to jail, like the pain management of my back. Also in an email, I emailed Colonel Bergen and the entire chain of command, to include Senior Reich, that I actually emailed my MRI results on my lower back, which shows sciatica, disc degeneration, bulging disc herniation, and a root compression. So they knew all this in advance before even throwing me in jail at this point. This isn't my first time in pretrial confinement. And again, the results of it are exactly the same, even though it's not a military jail. It's just, I don't understand how my medications I'm still not getting, or any of my concerns that I've been constantly addressing, which is why I've emailed almost everyone that I know at this point, to include the AFSOC General Conley and the one above him, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General, I actually forgot his name, Alvin, and the Chief Secretary of the Air Force. It was Frank Kendall, and now it's Melissa Dalton. Because no one's listening, sir. No one's absolutely listening. My mental health concerns are absolutely insane at this point. I'm coming back from an outpatient program at Laurel Ridge, 10-plus week program. They've diagnosed me with PTSD. I go back to work January, February under Chief Baldwin, and I ask her and Senior Reich, what's the status of my accommodations? And I have in a recording that Chief Baldwin tells me that mental health is not tracking a PTSD diagnosis. And the reason they're not tracking it is because it doesn't relate or whatever. I have over 100 recordings at this point, which is why I've now been ordered by Colonel Churchill to no longer record, even though he did give me approval to audio record only. But I can't do that at this point due to me violating a video recording, apparently. But this is why I want my court-martial so bad, because when these two attorneys go to bat for me, and if I testify myself, if they convince me to, the audio recordings, that's all I have at this point. That's the massive amount of evidence that I have against him. Everything that Senior Reich has said today, I know exactly what he's talking about. The Starbucks conversation, I've recorded everything, lawfully too, because New Mexico's a one-party consent state. So it behooves me that Colonel Churchill is ordering me to not record, but yet I'm not being charged for not recording. It's not the content of my Instagram post. It's posting during AWOL status between the hours of 7 to 4 is what I'm being charged with for that specific instance. Again, it's not what I'm posting. It's me posting during 7 to 3 while I'm being accused on AWOL status. The biggest one is my emails that everyone has gotten. I'm not being charged with who I emailed it to. I'm being charged with what was said on it. So technically, I could have emailed those individuals that I said those mean comments about, calling them disgraceful and discreditable and ignominious and the epitome of failed leadership. If I emailed it to them specifically, one by one, I would still be getting charged with this charge because of how they charged me, which is what I said, not who I sent it to. So for the whole prosecution team to even put an argument that I'm going to engage in serious misconduct, criminal misconduct actually, alleged criminal misconduct, when they're not even charging me for who I'm sending the emails out to, again, startles me. My TTM denial. So the whole thing, sir, is my TTM. After my CDE, that Senior Ike said that he was present for the order of which was, but he was mistaken about the date of when the mental health incident happened between him and I, which was almost mid-June, after the CDE. Anyway, here's the order here's the order real fast, sir. After the CDE, I had a team, let me rephrase. During the CDE, there was a TTM that happened in between, intermittently. Captain Abdulwali, that Senior Ike was not present for. So Captain Abdulwali at the time tells me, you heard my spiel. You know when, excuse me, sir. She said, until we know what you're being diagnosed with, I got nothing else for you. Now we know what I'm diagnosed with, sir. And there's no CD, there's no TTM. Master Sergeant Cahoon and Senior Ike actually asked her for me days after, ma'am, can we schedule this TTM? She has them tell me to email her what I want to talk about. So I do, and the emails are in that chain, sir, that you were provided. Again, the TTM hasn't happened. And then after that, I go above her. I go to Major Oldham, who tells me that he's going to schedule me therapy with Major Wiley, which I'm cordial to. And he says, I'll call you back within the week. Again, I have audio recordings of all of this. It's been 8 weeks now, still no phone calls, sir. Next, I find out that there's a secret TTM that I believe Senior Ike was present for. If he's not, then I apologize, but I believe he was part of it from what I was told. That the wing commander himself, Colonel Bergen, before he was relieved of his command, not disrespectful, whatever happened with him with that, honorably, I'll just add. So they have a secret TTM about me that had everyone in attendance, from my understanding, which it's unfortunate that wasn't brought up throughout this PCRO, which I really wish it was talked about. But from my understanding, Colonel Churchill was a part of it, Senior Ike was part of it, Captain Abdulwali was part of it. My entire chain of command, over 10 people or 11 people, and the top ranks, including Chief Marburg, I believe. And so they have a secret TTM about me. They don't invite Captain Tirado, my ADC. They don't invite me. I learned this, and then I get an LOR the next 2 duty days about the incident with Senior Ike and I. So I don't understand what the TTM was in relation to when I'm getting LORs. No one has even asked my side of what happened with Senior Ike. I would really appreciate, if it's possible, if you could read my rebuttal, sir, that was also provided in one of the attachments that you should have in a DOD safe. But that's my version of what's happened between Senior Ike and I. And I have audio recording of what happened halfway throughout. I wrote notes on what Senior Ike has said, and just to correct some of that real fast. So yes, he did say that he asked me if it could be at 1 o'clock. Absolutely true. But I don't know if you remember, Sergeant Cahoon said that, and Senior Cahoon said that they changed my hours from 9 to 1500, and then they changed it from 9 to 1300. So for Senior Ike to ask me who authorized you at 1300 already, I don't want to say set me off, but already it just looked like I'm being dishonest. I could have told him who, but I don't know, just the way he approached me with that. Because I know I'm not lying, but he's coming at me as I am. At least that's how I took it. Of course, he finds out that I'm actually telling the truth when he calls I don't know who's my supervisor at this point, but he calls Sergeant Cahoon, and he verifies that with him. Then Senior Ike does say, can 12:30 work? I think about it, and I said, no, that can't work, let's just do it next week. But he doesn't know, Senior Ike has no idea, that I have to go upstairs to TOPA, I have to just do some referrals up there, I have other things to do, I haven't had lunch yet, and I don't have time to cut what I need to do for my physical stuff to address this LOR closing that he wanted to do with zero notice on my behalf. Absolute zero notice. So he wasn't understanding that. He mentioned that I said his breath stinks. Well, the video's on my Instagram, and you can listen for that if you can hear that. That was not even on the LOR from Colonel Churchill of me saying that part. He said he wasn't falling into that trap. Okay, so for him to even say that he's falling into my trap means that I had to somehow plan all of this, that I knew he was there, and we were just going to get into an argument, and I wanted to coax him into calling security forces to apprehend me. I don't think I heard Senior Ike mention the word apprehension, but in the audio recording, he said, if you step to me again, I will apprehend you. That's a threat to me. Thank goodness, and nothing escalated after that, which is why I needed to get away from him immediately, walk away from the situation, which I did. And as I'm walking away, which you can also hear on the audio recording, he heckles me the entire way to the car, to the front parking lot, provokes me even further. I do stop, and I tell him, what are you doing? Why are you following me? And he says, what he said, that was truthful. But at that point, for him to say, he didn't want to fall into my trap, it's almost like he was trying to trap me into doing something to him. So this is what I'm dealing with, sir. This is all from the previous court-martial. Oh my gosh, sir. Senior Ike, he's the new tech sergeant Crispin, which is the first sergeant. Like they just, Captain Abduwali, excuse me, she's the new Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez. Colonel Churchill is the new Colonel Roche. Colonel Johnston is the new Colonel Bergen. Just because they're different people doesn't mean that I view them differently, because they're constantly doing the same things to me over and over, which is why I cannot wait for this court-martial, because if I'm going to put it all charges, and I'm ready to not be also, but I'm willing to try. And all the evidence is out there, which I have 100 times more at this point. What's that going to show? It's going to show that all the orders that they told me, these lawful orders that you're disobeying, it's going to show, just like it did prior, that I wasn't disobeying lawful orders, and in fact, they were unlawful orders, like the first go with Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez. These are my last notes. The biggest thing is, do not go into a 10-minute court-martial. I wrote 4 things. I absolutely asked for this by denying my NJP. I absolutely know what I'm doing at this point, that denying NJP means court-martial. I'm not going to deny NJP and run to Mexico. That makes no sense. That's not even logical. So for the few people that have said they won't think that I will attend this, is absolutely baseless and arbitrary, which is what I've been saying constantly in all my emails. Number 2, I already hired civilian counsel. You've heard from him today. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of civilian counsel already being hired for their PCRO hearing, but I'll throw that out there. 10 months ago, I had my court-martial, and, oh, yes, sir. So last 10 months ago, I had my court-martial. I was on approved parental leave, 12 weeks parental leave. If I wanted to not attend the court-martial, it would have been that one. Because me and my fiance right here with my son, we're in San Antonio, Texas, and again, the court-martial was throughout parental leave that I came back for appropriately in uniform, and I did what we had to do. So again, in all the emails that I'm stating, the plethora amount of times of me stating, I want this, is an understatement at this point. Further conduct, or further, am I going to engage in further serious misconduct? I already spoke about how I'm not being charged for who I sent my emails to, but rather what I said in it. I really want to hit that one, sir. And again, with my Instagram posts, again, not with what I said this time, like it was with my emails. It's that I'm posting throughout duty hours, again, during alleged AWOL. Other than that, I want to read a text message from Senior Hunt. I told him this, actually, before I was arrested. Sir, I emailed the wing commander, Colonel Johnson, last night, with you not included, due to the distrust I have for you with your proven lack of discernment and responsibilities within your given rank and position, respectfully. And this is the email that I emailed Colonel Johnston. I would respectfully like to request of you, sir, if I may, to please be scheduled for TTM as soon as possible. I've undergone a CDE by the order of Major Abduwali for May 30 and 31 of 2024. I had a premature TTM as well on May 31. During the evaluation process, Major Abduwali stated to me at the conclusion of that TTM, quote, so until the CDE comes back and we can actually figure out what you are being diagnosed with, I got nothing else for you, end quote. I received my full CDE results on July 9, 2024 on what the summary of presenting illness, impact on duty and mission, collateral information, risk assessment, and clinical impressions state I also believe to be critical. Colonel Churchill states to me on June 25, there may be some disconnects in terms of what you are tracking with medical type stuff that I need to get a handle on and make sure that you are aware of the status of all this stuff. So I'm taking that back for action plans to provide you the update with respect to MEB and anything else on the medical front Okay, so we owe that to you, end quote. And I have that in a recording as well. That's attached to the attachment sheet that you have, sir. He says, it continues with, my official MAB was approved on July 8th with the verbiage of the FL4 stating, after review, this member requires a full medical evaluation board or a retention decision by the physical evaluation board, the PEB. And on July 10th, 2 days later, my MAB was canceled with a verbiage on the FL4 now stating, member's case is returned without action, member is no longer eligible for disability processing. Once the member is physically present for duty, again, a clinical and legal update will be needed to this office. I've also been promised by Major Odom in early June that he would also provide me with a follow-up update for me to see Major Wiley for therapy and the status of this post-CEE TTM. I've yet to receive a single phone call. Lastly, as I'm sure you're aware of my progressive current dilemma, the current lack of treatment for my severe mental health concerns should not be used as a form of chastisement, in which I wholeheartedly believe to be happening to my family. With that said, I would humbly like to invite you, again to Colonel Johnston, to this TTM for whenever the date that may be. The importance of you being present for this as an impartial and nonpartisan commander who I am trusting will be most critical, as I have previously invited your predecessor, Colonel Jeremy Bergen, to include the prior deputy commander, Colonel Greer. But unfortunately, it was to no avail. If you are unable to commit to this TTM, I would humbly like to invite your Deputy Commander, Colonel McMaster. I've provided several attachments for some of the information that I've stated above. As I'm sure you're aware and then I said, I thank you graciously for your time. Very respectfully, Lance Castle, follower of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I sent this to Colonel Johnston, and I CC'd Colonel McMaster, Colonel Churchill, Lieutenant Colonel Atkinson Adams, Major Dosler, Major Abdulwali, Major Odom, Master Sergeant Weber, Master Sergeant Cahoon, and Captain Tirado, and my ABC counsel, Dan Conway. He didn't respond. I had no other choice but to constantly keep emailing higher 2 days after that email. So with all that said, sir, I really don't know what else to say actually other than that. I prepared that speech for you right there within the last 3 days. But if you do release me, sir, I absolutely will 100% attend inpatient. I actually want to at this point. Absolutely want to at this point, sitting in that confinement cell. And with everything that you heard today, them even thinking it would be beneficial, I'm absolutely willing to give it a shot and be active in the treatment plan of that. And I appreciate your time. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, the government representative and defense counsel can make brief comments.
Yes, sir. So you have in front of you quite a robust amount of information, both from government and defense. It's a lot to go through. And to that point, I just want to circle back to the things that you need to consider today. So, number one on the list is an offense triable by a court-martial that has been committed by the confinee. You have a different standard of proof than the person who ordered him into confinement. You have to look at this evidence through the lens of preponderance of the evidence. More likely than not, did he commit these offenses? Doesn't even need to be all of them, just one. We have text messages in front of you showing that he was messaged every day during the period of time that he was charged with AWOL, asking him, why are you not where you're supposed to be? Clarifying to him that he needed to be in Building 600. You have statements from both Senior Airman Castle made to witnesses who testified today and himself in those emails that he sent and those text messages that he sent, that he had no intention of returning to Cannon Air Force Base. There are multiple specifications regarding disrespect of senior officers and senior NCOs. I don't want to harp on that too much. What I'd rather focus on instead is the no contact order that he was given. You have the group text message in that evidence along with the no contact order itself naming the individuals he was not supposed to contact, and that group text messages showing that he contacted those individuals. Though it was not charged, you heard through the testimony that there were other occasions that those individuals were contacted through the use of emails on listservs. Understanding that listservs are very broad groups that we're all encompassed in, Senior Airman Castle knew what a listserv was. He knew that there might be individuals in that listserv that he was ordered not to contact, and he still put those listservs on there. Understanding that his intent was to meet the broadest audience possible to hopefully get some resolution that he felt met his needs, he still violated that no contact order. You can look through the other evidence to determine whether or not the charges and specifications that I haven't addressed were met by that preponderance of the evidence, but I think those two alone will show you that at least one offense triable by court-martial was committed by Senior Airman Lance Castle by a preponderance of the evidence. Now, turning to those three things that we've kind of harped on a few times throughout the day. Will the confinee appear at a pretrial hearing, preliminary hearing, or trial? Defense is asking you to rely on Senior Airman Castle's word that he wants this. The ADC elicited through testimony of Senior Master Sergeant Calhoun that at times he demanded it. They even said that he would die for it. We have this individual who is insisting that he wants to go to a court-martial, but when ordered to show up for a preferral is the first step towards court-martial. He didn't show. He was calling Master Sergeant Calhoun saying, what if this, what if this, what if this, and 45 minutes went by, and he didn't show. He's here today. This is a pre-trial hearing. He is here because he is in custody, and we brought him here. Turning towards whether the confinee will engage in other serious misconduct, I would just ask that you have a copy of the UCMJ. If you look at RCM 305, if you scroll down a little bit under what is 305 H2B, it lists these out. There's a discussion. It says, what is serious criminal misconduct? It includes intimidation of witnesses, other obstruction of justice, and offenses which pose a serious threat to the effectiveness of morale, discipline, readiness, or safety of the command. We have already seen him do these things. He has contacted people he was told not to contact. Individuals who are now witnesses in this case. If he couldn't be trusted to follow an order not to contact them before, he cannot be trusted to do the same thing now. In terms of offenses which pose a serious threat to the safety, to the effectiveness of morale, discipline, and readiness, you have the emails showing that he is sending these emails wide. If you want to give him the discretion in saying, hey, he may have skipped a couple of people in his chain of command, but he was still within his chain of command, what is more egregious is that he's sending these to mass emails in the Air Force and then posting them on a public-facing social media, including the disrespectful language, including the things that he says are unlawful. It is disruptive to our good order and discipline. You heard from witnesses saying that others from other bases have reached out and asked about what's going on here at Cannon. That's not good for our good order and discipline or AFSOC at large. Furthermore, in terms of obstruction of justice, an argument can be made that continually posting what he claims are unlawful orders or things that justify his actions, he's continuing to post evidence of misconduct. He's continuing to send emails to individuals who are witnesses in this case. Whether or not these witnesses are biased, they are still witnesses, and he is impacting other individuals who may be selected to serve on a panel. He is giving information to these individuals, and that is an obstruction of justice. Finally, less severe forms of restraint are inadequate. I really want to point out the fact here that you see time and time again, both in the text messages that you have and from people who have worked with him for an extended period of time, including Senior Master Sergeant Calhoun, who considers himself to have gotten to know Senior Airman Castle pretty well. Seems like they have a fairly decent working relationship, that he hasn't followed orders, and they don't necessarily trust that he will follow orders if ordered to be remaining on Cannon Air Force Base or even in the Clovis area. You heard from witnesses the fact that he said to Senior Master Sergeant Calhoun he didn't want to go to inpatient because he was going to be away from his family and his dogs. And yet now, when it's on his terms, he's saying inpatient is going to work for him. The reality of the matter is that in all of these things, it has to be on Senior Airman Castle's terms. He talks about wanting a clean slate, but he is not giving a clean slate to his chain of command. If the individual he is put under, no matter who it is, does not agree with him, they are now the enemy. We all know that our PIF follows us wherever we go. If we PCS, it stays in our records for a certain period of time. The PIF that is given to you is relevant because it shows a series of misconduct. It shows escalating misconduct. In partnership with the stuff that you have been presented today and the evidence that you heard, he is getting erratic. And while he may claim that that is related to the mental health diagnoses he has been given, both through on-base and off-base providers, it is still not an excuse for not following the rules of the Air Force. The MEB exists outside of this process. It should not be considered in determining whether or not he should remain in confinement. You can consider whether restrictions on his liberty may be effective, and the command can make those decisions. But at the end of the day, he has still violated law, and he has still taken steps that have put him, his decisions, put him into pretrial confinement. I would ask that you read through this evidence, consider all the testimony, and find that he should remain in pretrial confinement. Thank you, sir.
Okay, over to the defense for your closing statement.
Yes, sir, this is Mr. Conway. Yes, sir, this is Mr. Conway. I'm just going to go straight down your required findings here and briefly discuss them. The first issue, whether defense trial by court-martial has been committed. I think that you need to place this whole case in its proper context as a diagnosis that he's paranoid delusional. In other words, he has been diagnosed paranoia without the hallucinations, but he does in fact have some delusional beliefs. And he's got intermittent explosive disorder as well as narcissistic personality disorder. Now, mind you, he's never physically harmed anyone. And he intentionally in an assaultive type way. He's got PTSD, as recently diagnosed. The MEB, of course, is treated as prior trauma, basis history of prior trauma. He's got ADHD and the blood pressure. I think the blood pressure is certainly significant when we look at some of the nonverbal. If you had witnesses hearing commenting on sort of nonverbal reactions, he may be perceived as aggressive, which are probably more the result of hypertension. But in terms of whether a court-martial offense has been committed, I'm not going to belabor you. have the PIF. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version here. This was, you have Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez, who's a former Marine. I'm a former Marine. So you got two former Marines and a court-martial that don't like each other doing a cross-examination. You have a COVID refusal based on very strongly held religious exemptions. And you have continued orders to take the COVID vaccine from Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez. You'll see in the PIF, Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez becomes kind of increasingly disciplinary in terms of issuing letters of LOCs and whatnot and LORs, and sort of this personality conflict ensues, and there's just a deluge of a paper trail that flows, all flows, from the very beginning, from a COVID vaccine refusal order to a paranoid delusional individual. Now, from that, the government, I don't know if you have the original charge sheet, but Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez prefers the original charges, which are all based on B3, the 72-hour notice. It goes to a court-martial, and the hearing capital is fully And so what you hear and hopefully you'll see in the memorandum there is, and you hear a little bit from the senior, is that, and this is the context of why he's videotaping the referral of charges, because he's told that there's a TTM meeting, in the original case, a TTM meeting with this mental health provider, and instead he gets to the front gate to go to the TTM meeting between Vasquez, the mental health provider, and senior Castle, and he's literally tackled at the front gate and injured. He's taken into pretrial confinement where his blood pressure is spiked because this is why he's in county, because they can't put him at Cannon. And where he's sitting on the bed, there's a video of the whole thing with the towel over his head, and he's ordered to take the towel over his head. That he's got light sensitivity issues from the PTSD and the blood pressure issues, which he won't give his meds for. His blood pressure is extremely high when they eventually take him to the hospital. It's dangerously high. And he refuses to take the towel off his head, and so they do a physical cell extraction where they very aggressively storm into the cell like a SWAT team in order to get take the towel off. They tackle him, and his shoulder is subsequently injured. You hear about a shoulder surgery. Well, that part comes from the cell extraction. So when they go to do the referral, of course, like he's worried he's going to get tackled. He's paranoid delusional. So what winds up happening here is he's fully acquitted from all of these charges, and one would think that the prudent course of action would be to remove him from the LRF, because it's the worst thing, every chance he can get, that he's afraid of Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez, anybody that knows him, and he's afraid of LRF, and he doesn't want to go in the building, because he's paranoid delusional and thinks that he could be arrested again at any moment, or that they're going to try and create another paper trail against him. Now, the LRF, their absolute court judge, refuses at any time to remove him. And the ADC intervenes and says, hey, bring him in, he can work at the ADC's office until his med board is complete. Like the senior airman, Cass is deeply religious. You kind of heard that. Strictly religious. And so they say, well, just send him down to the chapel. He's happy to go work in the chapel. No. The LRF doesn't want to let go of him. The LRF doesn't want to let go of him. And so what winds up happening here is that he becomes, you'll see throughout all of this evidence, that he becomes upset that Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez and the chain of command are not being held responsible for a number of things related to both the COVID vaccine and lying to him about the TTM. And there's a number of other grievances that he has. But whether an offense was committed or not may be doubtful, because in his mind he believes it's the truth, and he believes that he's reporting violations of the UCJ. Well, I don't believe that a court-martial offense has been committed. I'll skip to whether he'll appear at trial, because he never briefly found it necessary. Of course, he's the best predictor of future performance here. Of course, his past, he had a court-martial, and he fully participated. He fully participated again here. He's asked for to stay in court. He wants to stay in court because he believes that it's the only way that he can tell his story. And that's all back to the paranoid delusional diagnosis. He believes that it's his only way to tell the story. He will absolutely be there and engage it through counsel. Next, whether the confined will engage in serious criminal conduct. Well, the government says a couple of things here. But when we talk about intimidation of witnesses for obstruction of justice, in the context of what the government does, the manual for court-martial is not using those words in the way that the manual for court-martial discusses it. First of all, Senior Castle is never, this is important, number one, when you analyze this, he's never threatened a witness. He's never asked a witness to obstruction of justice. He's never asked a witness to alter their testimony or to testify in any particular way. 3, He's never asked a witness to destroy or otherwise conceal information. This is not what he's engaged in is by no stretch of the imagination obstruction of justice, and had it been obstruction of justice, there's no doubt in my mind that the government would have charged him. He's not intimidated any witnesses. A group email to basically everybody on the installation. I haven't looked whether you were on the emails or not, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least if you choose yourself, the hearing officer, were on the emails, because it was a blast email to everybody. Preventing the distribution of an email, something that you can block with software, or even take away his hand card. When we look at lesser forms of restraint, they can take away his ability to send emails. It is not a proper justification for the deprivation of liberty. The public can't carry a threat. Serious injury to others. There's no threat of serious injuries to others. He is fully engaged in the extent that he has grievances. He's fully engaged with the legal system. He's filed multiple complaints. He's got it on July 11th. Right? The same day, I believe, off the top of my head, the NJP offer, he filed an Article 138 complaint. He's not a violent person, and nobody is at threat of being injured here. And then finally, other offenses would pose a, quote, serious threat to the safety of the community, of effectiveness, morale, discipline, readiness, or safety of the command, or to the national security of the United States. Okay? The Aaron Castle is a paranoid delusional individual who has filed multiple complaints. There's people, to the extent that there's been a disruption, it's just people that don't want to be on the email chain. That's it. They don't want to be on the email chain. And finally, the final thing that I'm going to talk about is that the government has suggested that he wanted a clean slate, and they tried to give him a clean slate. Well, they didn't. They left them fundamentally underneath the control of the very people who betrayed him and lied to him about it. I've never, in my 20 years of practice, seen a service member lied to about a mental health meeting. It's absolutely breathtaking. Absolutely. It's shocking. And so there was a betrayal, both by the LRS and by behavioral health. And not only was it a betrayal, but it was a betrayal to an individual with a paranoid delusional diagnosis. And so what we need here, sir, I know you have no control over the charging document, of course, but he needs to be released. This is not a proper deprivation of liberty. And even the master sergeant, I believe, the senior master sergeant, Calhoun, indicated that he needs inpatient treatment, will comply with inpatient treatment. Should have had inpatient treatment a long time ago. And then he needs to complete his med board and be separated. So this has been a mismanaged case by legal, and it's been an abuse of discretion here in imposing confinement. So I hope you'll analyze those factors in that context. I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those remarks. Pending anything else? Okay, this review is concluded. Thank you for your participation.